said. Solid, conservative, and just plain right. Well, welcome to Thursday, which around here we favorably call Thankful Thursday. We got a sound effect for that, too.
You got to be more thankful.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. You're a gentleman and a scholar.
We thank you so much for this bountiful harvest of Domino's, KFC, and the always delicious Taco Bell.
Have you said thank you once?
Thank you.
Thank you. And that would be, by the way, JP pushing buttons on the board. JP, I'm thankful for you.
I'm thankful for you.
Well, I appreciate it. I'm thankful that you're thankful.
And I'm thankful for that.
And it's Thankful Thursday. Hey, we're glad you guys are with us. Glad you guys are with us for a Thankful Thursday. And we got a great show laid on for you. You know the deal. Thankful Thursdays, we bring in two other people we're also thankful for. Halfway through hour number 2, we'll do a round of Butters and Lee. So stand by for that one. Coming up halfway through hour number 2, Butters and Lee. And then I got a triple dipper, bar none. So hit it.
The Triple Dipper. 3 stories you've got to know.
That's right, the Triple Dipper, 3 stories, 3 themes, if you will, that you got to know as we run today's show. First out the gate, man, we're going to be talking about manhood today. Manhood. We're doing the manhood reboot. That's what I'm calling for, a manhood reboot. Number 1, Triple Dipper, we'll talk about what the left is trying to do to manhood, and also why the left can't seem to figure out manhood, and why the left is losing young men left and right. Yeah, we'll talk about it. The manhood reboot, number 1 on the Triple Dipper. Number 2, I got to ask this question. So I've been watching a show online that really gives me pause, not online, but on TV, about basically, and I'll just won't name the show right now, but it's look at it as a military mission across the border in Mexico because drug cartels are out of control. It's a question that you have to look at and go, wow, is that possible? And the bigger question is Mexico a failed state? There's an actual definition for that. What is a failed state? We're going to talk about Mexico. We're going to talk about whether or not the Mexican government has control of its own territory. What does that mean for us right next door? Is this like Israel having Hezbollah on the neighboring, north? I don't know. Is Mexico a failed state? That's number 2 on the Triple Dipper. And then number 3, are you tracking what's been happening up in D.C.? Wow. We have a bill out there right now called the Pelosi Act. Yes, they audaciously went ahead and named the bill after someone who is currently serving in the legislature. The Pelosi Act, dealing with questions of insider trading. She's not happy with it either, too, by the way. We'll talk about the Pelosi Act and all that means as number 3 on the Triple Dipper. All right, let me jump on into today's Rightside Way opening monologue, and I'll just remind you guys, as always, that the Rightside Way is brought to you by Stan McDonald. Stan McDonald, partner at the law firm of Wilmer and Lee. He's a 30-year veteran in the practice of law. He is a longtime conservative, and yes, indeed, he is the daily sponsor of the Rightside Way. So, if you were listening to the show yesterday, you heard a brief snippet that yesterday the lovely Charlene let me know she's done with buying makeup from Ulta. There you go. Done with buying makeup from Ulta. Well, that's a brick and mortar store, if you're not familiar, that specializes in selling women's makeup and hair care products and all of that. You may recall that in that discussion yesterday, we briefly discussed the fact that Ulta, the national chain of ladies' makeup stores, has decided it would just be a great brand enhancement for them to use a bearded so-called non-binary freak show guy who stars as a stylist on the show Queer Eye as one of their product line sponsors. Well, the online rave of madness was really something, as the new makeup hawker pranced into an Ulta store wearing a silky dress with his long hair and his well-groomed beard, gushing and squealing and using schoolgirl giggles to watch the unveiling of his bearded likeness on a store display. I mean, what in the actual name of all that's real and reasonable was that even about? And let's not look aside from the fact that this is a man. This is a man mocking a representation of women. Real men don't act like that. And by the way, real women don't act like that either. Every time you see a drag queen, keep in mind that what you're seeing is the clown world of the gay community. They mock women by donning garish makeup and flamboyant clothing and enhancing their body parts, and they overhype their mannerisms in a clownish representation of women's behavior. But it's not women. And in truth, these are really not men when you get down to it. Real men don't mock women. Real men don't pretend to be women. Real men don't leave their manhood behind. Well, the war on manhood was already underway, and then Dylan Mulvaney showed up on all places a Bud Light can. Well, the fact that a biological male can be applauded as an influencer for prancing on videos and celebrating 365 days to girlhood is a clear indication something has gone awry. And therein lies part of the problem. It is certainly an issue that there are those who believe or desire to be the opposite sex, but it is made worse by the fawning left-wing media who brands actual manhood as toxic while somehow giving credibility to the incredible actions of used-to-be men who pretend to be women. You can see it in women's sports as dudes now proclaim themselves to be dudettes and cowards who run sports programs who refuse to look them in the eye and tell them they need psychological help. They just affirm them and then put them in all of the testosterone glory they have into the estrogen pool and let them swim with the girls. Meanwhile, real girls who have trained for years to be at the top of their game risk injury and loss of their dreams because the cowards in our society don't stand up to the imaginations of the progressive left. Look, I read a book a while back. I think I've mentioned it on the show before. It's a small book by best-selling author Stephen Pressfield. Stephen Pressfield, the book's called The Warrior Ethos. Pressfield's actually one of my favorite authors. He wrote the epic historical novel called Gates of Fire about the 300 Spartans who stood in the face of overwhelming odds against the mighty Persian army. But in this other book, The Warrior Ethos, Pressfield takes a chapter at a time to describe such politically incorrect things as duty, honor, and country. Having a sense of humor under fire, the essence of courage, a sense of civility and love coming from positions of strength, providing aid and support to the weak and emboldening others. He talks about things like inner wars and outer wars and how to train up young men to be old warriors. Well, these attitudes, these character traits, if you will, many of which are learned behaviors, are not just for soldiers. Truthfully, they're not just for men. I mean, women can have undaunted courage. Women can face crisis with grace and poise. I'm married to a woman like that. I help raise a woman like that. My son is like that, and he's married to a woman like that. But today, for the next couple of minutes, and in the first dipper, today, I'm just going to be talking about men. It's what I know. I am one. I have been for a lot of years. But more than just being biologically male, I was also raised to be a man. I mean, it's possible to be a male and not be manly, right? It's possible to leave behind all that God intended in the male of our species. And by the way, nothing good comes from that, nothing whatsoever. Allie Beth Stuckey, who was a Christian conservative influencer, she wrote a great piece that I've quoted here on the show before. It was titled, Make Men Masculine Again. It's worth the read, by the way. Because like I said, there's a movement on the left to try and neuter manhood, to enshrine the beta male as the role model for our civilized society. And I say hogwash to that. In her article that I really enjoyed, Stuckey made the point that when you try to make men more like women, you don't get less toxic masculinity, you get more. Why? Because in her words, bad men don't become good when they stop being men. They become good when they stop being bad. Aggression, violence, unbridled ambition, she said, they can't be eliminated from the male psyche. They can only be harnessed. And when they're harnessed, they're tools for good, not for harm. Stuckey went on to elaborate then that, quote, the answer to toxic masculinity isn't less masculinity, it's just better masculinity. And we know what that looks like, she said. It's a young man opening the door for a girl on the first date. It's a father working long hours to provide for his family. It's a soldier who's willing to risk his life to defend his country. And the growing problem in today's society, y'all, is not that there are men are too masculine, it's just that they're not masculine enough. Stuckey went on to point out that when men embrace their masculinity in a way that is healthy and productive, they are leaders and warriors and heroes. And when they deny their masculinity, they run away from responsibilities and they leave destruction and despair in their wake. And the consequences can be seen everywhere in our society. So yeah, understand me when I say this. True masculinity is not defined by your age, your status, or your outward appearance. It's a compilation of what I would say are more esoteric things like character, like this warrior ethos I told you about work ethic, about care and concern for others, about self-sacrifice, about courage. And it's the little things sometimes. It's the little things that we need to teach the next generation of men to do better as a matter of muscle memory. Things like standing up to bullies, like speaking out for your beliefs, like sacrificing a little of your me time to go play with your child, like opening the door for your wife, telling her she's the most important person in your life, like paying your employees before you pay yourself, like checking on a friend in need. Again, don't confuse this monologue with some kind of preconceived notion of the poster boy for true masculinity. It's not. You do not have to be the Marlboro Man. You do not have to be a member of SEAL Team 6 or somebody who knows how to spit dip without getting it on your shirt. You can be rough without losing your civility. You can have calloused hands and still wear a tie to work every day. You can be a father separated from your kids and you can still be a daddy to them. So yeah, it's true. The attitude of roughness and masculinity gets often embodied in a mental picture of like harsh ruggedness, right? George Orwell said, people sleep peaceably in their beds at night only because rough men stand ready to do violence on their behalf. And yes, in my days, I've known a lot of dudes, a lot of action guys, a lot of operators, members of America's elite special operations, first responders, dudes with grit and determination. And by the way, a lot of them did not fit what you might think to be the visual stereotypical mold. How about that? It's not always how they look on the outside. It's who they are on the inside. Even in the Bible, when he was preparing to crown the future king of Israel, Samuel was taken aback that it would wind up being David, a small guy, the least among his family, and the least among the tribes. But God told Samuel in 1 Samuel 16:7, he said, the Lord sees not as man sees, for man looks at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. Look, I don't care if you've never earned a medal. I don't care if you haven't got a penny to your name. I don't care if you have a physical disability. I don't care if you've made mistakes in your past. I don't care about any of that. Hear me when I say this. Society is better off if men will act like men with a sense of masculinity that transcends their outward appearance. If they do that, it will definitely resonate to all around them. So yeah, going back to that article by Allie Beth Stuckey, she concluded better than I could have by saying these things. She said, the devaluation of masculinity won't end well because feminine, passive men don't stop evil. Passive men don't defend or protect or provide. Passive men don't lead. Passive men don't do things we have always needed men to do for society to thrive. She said, rape and murder and war, they all have two things in common. There are bad men who do the raping, murdering, and the warring, and weak men who won't stop them. We need good men who will. She said, it's not masculinity that's toxic, it's the lack of it. So well done. So well put. So yeah, Dylan Mulvaney is not a woman, but he ain't much of a man either. Masculinity is on the rebound, I think. I think it's becoming fashionable, vogue again, to actually say, you know what? Hey, let's get her done. And by the way, in the course of it all, let's remember, be the man. We need it. We need men to be men, to act like men, to lead and to love like men. Our nation and our world is always better when they do. That's a wrap for the Right Side Way. Well, there you have it, and I'm serious when I say it. Be the man. It is not a question of how you look or what you've got or what you've done in life. It's a question of character. It's a question of principles. It's a question of standing up under duress and of taking care of those who you've been entrusted to love and to care for. Being a man, we need more of them. Bill Williams, Right Side Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. Equity, inclusion. Did you get sick of those words during the last few years? I pretty much did. Yeah, diversity, equity, and inclusion. Three innocent words that have developed what may be a very sinister meaning. I mean, there's a strong movement underway right now led by Republican state legislators, to include right here in Alabama and in Tennessee, to abolish DEI practices in government offices and in public education. Basically, though, in some states now, if you want to receive your annual appropriation for the state budget, you better get away from those practices that exhibit favoritism and race baiting based on a person's skin color, sexual identity, or so-called underrepresentation. We're seeing it right now as a strong movement from the federal government as well. The Trump administration has issued orders to the whole of government, including the U.S. military, to disband DEI offices and to stop DEI practices. No more pronoun seminars, no more hiring preferences, no more inclusion memos and passing over the best candidates for the most woke candidates. DEI is truly where merit has gone to die. It is. Y'all, when somebody's appearance or their lifestyle or their claims of victimization are the top lines on their resume, the job will suffer. Why? Because it means they're not rewarding productivity and achievement. It means that success of the mission is secondary to the feelings of the employees, which means that the mission could actually fail. But hey, the boss will feel good about themselves for giving some poor, downtrodden, unqualified wretch a very important position, though, right? Virtue signal all the way to mediocrity. I hope you've all seen the movie Hidden Figures. I hope you have. It's an amazing true story. The movie starred Octavia Spencer, Kevin Costner, and a cast of greats. The efforts to combat racism in the early days of NASA's Apollo. That's the whole Apollo mission set. That's what the movie's about. And the best mathematician in NASA at the time was a lady named Catherine Goebel, a black woman. But because of her skin color, her work was deemed unfit until one day her calculations actually won the approval of her boss, and then they won the approval of astronaut John Glenn. Yeah, she was the best. But her merit was being suppressed because her supervisors were too busy looking for one skin color on the job. We'll flip that script to today, and we've come full circle. The effort to allegedly overcome the racism and marginalism of the past is not met with cries to always promote the best, no matter what their skin color. Oh no, the race baiters and charlatans of today are back to the days of meritless work environments based only on lifestyle and skin color, and thus merit fades into obscurity like some weird scene from Idiocracy. Well, just the other day, it was discovered that the Boston Police Department is in a recruiting drive for Muslim officers because, everyone knows your religious preference is key to being a good cop. And when you dial 911, you want to first ask what the religion is of the first responder, right? No. Or how about in King County, Washington, not long ago, when a DEI training session for firefighters was suspended when it became centered on the notion that white first responders were somehow dangerous. Let's just say the firemen were having none of it. Not long ago, a school board meeting in Pennsylvania got kind of DEI weird when one of the members openly stated she could not support one individual for the position as president of the board because, here's her quote, she said it on the open record, he was the only cis white male running, so she couldn't support him. Even though she acknowledged he would likely do a good job, she thought it would send the wrong message. Yeah, she was compelled to resign a few days later. And you may recall the story I told it about a year and a half, 2 years ago, about the Thomas Jefferson High School for Science and Mathematics. One of the most renowned high schools in the nation, apparently. The administration there had become so woke that they began withholding information from students who became national merit scholars. Can you imagine that? You or your child with long years and grueling hours of study, earning the right to be named as a national merit finalist or semifinalist, a fact that, by the way, can make all the difference in the competitive world of college admissions. And that school deliberately refused to make it known. Why? Because they say it clashed with the new Thomas Jefferson High School for Science and Mathematics equitable grading standards. Equitable grading standards. Basically, the pinheads in charge of Thomas Jefferson High School for Science and Mathematics were concerned that if one student excelled, that other students would feel badly about themselves. So in their narrow, woke-minded view, they just chose to dumb down everyone instead of allowing merit or excellence to rise to the top. I mean, this all sounds like fiction, right? It does. It sounds a lot like fiction, but it's not. But there was a fictional story that somebody brought to my attention not long ago. I'd forgotten about it. The story is called Harrison Bergeron by Kurt Vonnegut. Kurt Vonnegut was a prolific writer of science fiction. Harrison Bergeron is actually a short story he wrote in 1961, maybe only 6 pages long. And wow, is it on point. Let me read you a few lines. You ready? Here's how it opened. The year was 2081, and everybody was finally equal. They weren't only equal. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Just saving the world one soundbite at a time. I know somebody's about to call in a moment, so if they do, just give me a thumbs up there, JP. We'll take it. In the meantime, text lines are open, 833-687-4448. I got it. Is he on the line right now? I'll tell you what, before I read out the thing about Stan McDonald, I'll just go to the phone because I think Stan McDonald's on the phone. Stan McDonald, how are you doing, man?
I'm doing great. Can you hear me okay, Phil?
I got you fine, man.
Okay. Listen, I just want the listeners to know this is not rehearsed. Phil does not know I'm calling and saying this. I just listen to your monologue, Phil, and I listen to you a lot. And thank you for the nice things you say about me, but I'm calling about what I heard today. And I want to be very specific in my praise on this. Phil, you speak as seamlessly as anyone I've ever heard in going back and forth between express, direct word of God, contemporary public policy, and family governance all three together,
Hmm.
as well as anyone I've ever heard that I know or that I've even read from their books or even heard on the radio. And I want to emphasize this again. The Word of God will go from you into public policy and family governance in a very simple and easy way. It's on the front of your mind. And that comes through in your monologues so often. Today's monologue was an A+, but you've had several A+ monologues. And I just wanted to say that, and I hope our listeners will, and I'm saying it because I want our listeners to recognize what they hear. That is what's special about this show. There's many people that can carp and complain and be real loud about the greatest atrocities and hypocrisies that they see in the public discourse. And there's great preachers on the radio.
Wow.
And there's people who can do good family counseling on the radio. But, and I'm going to ask this rhetorically, I know our listeners can't answer out loud, I won't hear it. But have any of y'all ever heard any of those people that can mix all three of these things together as well as Phil Williams does?
Oh, wow.
It's not out there. It doesn't exist. So thank you for what you do. Thank you for the nice things you say about me, but that's not what this is about. And keep up the good work.
Wow, thank you, brother. I'm blown away. I appreciate that. That was not planned, but that was also appreciated more than you could possibly understand or imagine. Maybe you could, because we talk a lot. But anyway, nonetheless, I think you know how much I appreciate you, man, and thank you so much.
I want to say one other thing. This particular show, I know you have a special heart for the military, and you are military. But I want to tell you this: you don't fall far from the tree. For the listeners, I knew your dad.
Yeah. And
your dad was a good Vietnam man. And I've told you this before, Phil, but I've raised four boys, children, but four boys, and started early with them to understand sacrifices that were paid for this country. And oftentimes on Veterans Day, I'm on the telephone at an early age, 4 or 5 years old, and I teach them how to call a veteran and say thank you. And your dad was always on the. I remember we'd call him on November 11th every now and then. It would surprise him, and he'd hear this 6, 7-year-old voice say, "Thank you, sir, very much for your service." And I miss your dad. I know that you do too.
I do, man.
But thank you for what y'all stand for.
Brother, thank you. And we're actually right up against the break. Brother, I love you and I appreciate you. And I'll be talking to you again sometime soon. But thank you so much for that. Very much. All right, that's Stan McDonald, who, by the way, sponsors the Right Side Way monologue every day. Now, I guess you can see maybe why he chose to sponsor in that way. Anyway, I'm blessed by it. Blessed by it. Phil Williams, Right Side Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. God and the law, they were equal every which way. Nobody was smarter than anybody else. Nobody was better looking than anybody else. Nobody was stronger or quicker than anybody else. All the equality was due to the 211th, 212th, and 213th Amendments to the Constitution, and to the unceasing vigilance of the agents of the United States Handicapper General. Wow. The story goes on, by the way, to describe the very average lives of George and Hazel Bergeron. It describes Hazel as being of average intelligence, but George was actually determined to be very intelligent. So the government office of the Handicapper General, they made him wear a device that blasted erratic noises in his ears every few minutes to keep him from having clear and cogent thoughts that might make him excel over that of others. In the story, it was described as a sharp noise to keep people like George from taking unfair advantage of their brains. George and Hazel sat watching a ballet on TV in the story, but each of the dancers, based upon their individual skills, were saddled with bags of birdshot tied to their waist to weigh them down so that nobody could dance better than the other. And each one of the dancers had to wear masks so that nobody could be more beautiful than the other. Well, the title character was Harrison Bergeron. He was the son of George and Hazel. But the office of the Handicapper General, they had removed him from their home as their son. They took their son out of the home when he was 14 because he was too perfect. He was too attractive. He was too athletic. He was too smart. Nobody should have a child that much better than anyone else. Harrison was featured in the story as the anti-equality character, and I won't try to spoil it for you by telling you what happened next, but it was spot on. Spot on. The story of Harrison Bergeron by Kurt Vonnegut sounds creepy, and yet you can compare the same attitude to what we see in the ridiculous decisions by people in charge of places like the Thomas Jefferson School for Science and Mathematics. Let me tell you, when those in charge become determined to suppress excellence in favor of equity, then failure becomes the norm and success becomes a crime. Let me say that again with as much emphasis as I can. When those in charge become determined to suppress excellence in favor of equity, then failure becomes the norm and success becomes a crime. Make no mistake, I'm not for discrimination. I'm not for trying to keep someone down because of their race, sex, religion, or pregnancy, but the race to DEI is not that. DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion, those are just synonyms for refusing to allow any one person's merit to be the guide to their ability to serve or succeed. It's farcical to think for a second that good will come of giving someone a job or a title or a security clearance or a scholarship or some power over others merely because they checked off a DEI box and not because they were the best candidate for the job. Cases in point. Think over the last few years. Remember Samuel Brenton? Oh, yeah. Samuel Brenton, the cross-dressing, non-binary, radical kink fetish lecturer, should never have been given a top secret clearance or access to sensitive government information. It was wrong and it failed. How about Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson, an extremely accomplished jurist and with a sound legal mind? She should never have been put in the position of having an asterisk by her appointment to the Supreme Court of the United States merely because she was a black woman. She may well have earned it otherwise, but President Biden tainted her by announcing that DEI was his first motive in selecting her. And then there's even on the Republican side. Remember George Santos? Should have never been elected to Congress from the state of New York because he habitually lied about his own resume in an effort to be something that he's not. Well, Santos is gone now. He's in jail now. Removed from office by his peers in the House, Santos is a product of a society that believes that no one is okay the way God made them. You have to be adjusted. You have to be able to show something different than just achieving things on your merit. So yeah, DEI, y'all, that's where merit goes to die. When we allow ourselves to believe for a minute that no one is allowed to be the person that God intended them to be, or to exercise their own gifts or talents or personal disciplines in such a way as to earn a position, then we have become something like, nothing more than a society filled with empty, average characters like George and Hazel Bergeron, saddled up with bags of birdshot and noisemakers so that no one person can rise to their personal best. DEI, that's where merit goes to die and where failure becomes acceptable. Conservative, just plain right. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. Just covering down on some major ground across the southeast U.S. of A, y'all. I'm talking about this show, this show. I mean, it goes from like Huntsville back on over to Chattanooga. I'm talking about from Tuscaloosa back on over to Gadsden. I mean, all the way down to that loveliest little village on the plains we call Auburn, straight across the border to what we call, once again, Fort Benning. And then big old patches of North Georgia and Mississippi all thrown in just for good measure. And that's just the radio audience. That's just radio. Then there's all y'all in the whole wide world going to the World Wide Web, live streaming the show every day, looking right into the studio on video, listening to the show that way. And you pick it up on places like Facebook and YouTube and X and Rumble and our website, rightsidemedia.org. And then all you guys that podcast after the fact, if you're hearing me talk about it right now, hear me say this. We appreciate you. We love you. The reason why we do it is because all of you, no matter which way you get the show, thank you. Thank you very much. I got a ton of text messages. Text lines are open, 833-687-4448. That's 833-68-RIGHT. You can text it or call it. In a minute, we'll jump on into the Dipper, which is what kind of on the same theme of my monologue, the Manhood reboot. Let me get a few text messages first, though. Dave from Capshaw. What'd you send me, Dave? Dave from Capshaw sends me a meme. Has Donald J. Trump wearing jeans, and it has an American Eagle saying, Donald J. Trump has great jeans. Sure to blister the audience of leftists out there.
So he's wearing jean pants, jean jacket, and a jean shirt. Donald Trump in this picture.
Got lots of jeans.
He has lots of jeans and great jeans.
There's a whole lot of denim going on right there. Yep. All right. Shag Nasty, the atheist, checking in. Oh, good. Shag believes that Republicans are somehow bad, and the GOP is filled up with gross old perverts. And Shag, there's hope for you yet. The fact that you listen to the show every day means you're hearing truth, and I just pray that one day it finally sinks in. Jeff from Indiana says, Phil, we have other pretenders as well. He has a smiley face. He said, Joe Biden's presidency I likened to drag queens pretending to be females, and it was just that clownish. He said Joe Biden actually could probably serve another 2 terms if you wanted to, because he never served the first one. The auto pen did. Oh, okay. John from Huntsville says, Phil, awesome monologue. And that's all he says. John, we're worried about you. That's 2 days in a row. You have just done this little short version of, where's the also? I'm looking for the also. I'm looking for the chiding of the Atlanta Braves. I'm looking for something. Blink twice if you need help, John. JT from Lacey Springs says, I've adopted what my dad would say when coming to someone's aid or need. I'm glad to do it, and I'm able to do it. And to be able to do it. That's a great phrase. And it's 2 parts that you're right. Glad to do it, which means yes. And to be able to do it means capable. So yeah, JT, good stuff, man. Thanks. Barbara from Trinity said, oh, that's great. She said, today's monologue is fire. Thank you so much for speaking truth to men. It'll make women be better women. I agree with that. I mean, when we live out the way God made us, let me say this. I said on the show before, but I think it bears repeating now. Men being manly, women being feminine, there's nothing wrong with it at all. And by the way, you can still be strong. You can still be courageous, and nothing about what I just said is in any way sexist or misogynist or whatever else. Men being men is what God intended. Women being feminine is what God intended. And oh, by the way, I would also say too, there is no such thing as the crossover. There's not. And the whole idea of gender affirming care that the left talks about, let me just rant about that for a second. It is not affirming to say that someone is broken. It's not. It is not affirming to look at someone, some child especially, and say, yeah, you know what? You were made wrong. We got to fix you. It's going to take medication and surgery, but we're going to get you fixed. Don't worry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry you're broken like this. We got to fix you. That's not affirmation. That's destruction. That's tearing somebody down. That's telling them that for reasons they can't even control, they're just messed up. But only you have the solutions to fix them. That's not affirming. If you want to affirm a kid, tell them they are perfect in the way God made them, that they were fearfully and wonderfully made, that they were knit together by God in their mother's womb to be what they are, and that alone is sufficient. Grow in it and be that which God made you to be. Now, you take that to the bank. You tell every child and grandchild you've got in your environment. You tell every kid, if you're a teacher, you tell them in your classroom. You tell them, hey, you're the best you. God designed you on purpose. You are the way he wanted you to be. And oh, by the way, you're not broken. You affirm a kid that way, it'll change their life. I guarantee you. TL from Huntsville says, well, nice thing. Says, ditto to Stan McDonald. Thank you very much. Said, well stated. We appreciate you and JP more than we usually say. TL, thank you for that. JP and I both thank you. Allie from Athens says, Colonel, as you know, I once said to all that would listen that I will never be some man's baby machine. Yes. And then Yeshua and I had a heart and a head and heart on collision. And know that today you have delivered one of the most beautiful descriptions of true masculinity that I've ever heard. God gets the glory, but you get the compliment. Well done, sir. Wow, Allie. Thank you. Appreciate you as always. And then Jim from Athens says, I think that was the greatest monologue you've ever delivered. Wow. Said, thank you. I totally agree with it all, but it makes me wonder, where does the feminine start in males? That puzzles me. I don't know. TV shows and commercials promote the feminine male. It's sickening. Well, I think what you're looking at there is cultural learned behavior. It is. It's faddish. It is absolutely purely faddish for men to be feminine in their behaviors. Now, granted, some are more effeminate, and I don't want to say that in a rude way. I'm saying that some have a calmer personality. Some are less inclined to, roughhousing. It does not make them in any way less manly. They can be just as courageous on the inside and not be a paratrooper, not be a member of the SEAL teams. You don't have to be a sheriff's deputy to know what's right and wrong. All that to say, manliness, manhood is not based on how you look or what assets you have in your life. It's just not. Stephen from Huntsville says, hearing all these text messages, sorry I missed the monologue. Now I have to go find it. I did listen to the morning drive, which I think is the condensed version. Yes, it was. This morning I actually did that. I made my morning drive, which I do every day on social media. You can find it on @SinPhilWilliams or on our Facebook page or whatever. You can find it. Every morning I do this. It's literally only a minute and a half long. And today it was a spinoff of that monologue. So, yep.
And good news, you can go to Rightside Media on podcasts and find the monologue every day. So it's up there every day.
Chiming in with all the right information. Thank you, JP. Let's talk about this a little bit. Dipper number 1, I'm calling it the Manhood reboot. So I mentioned in my monologue that Ulta has just hosed themselves, in my opinion. I mean, who comes up with this stuff? JP, if you have the answer, chime in. I don't know who comes up with this stuff. Somewhere there is some highbrow marketing firm that says, here's a great idea. You cater to women, right? All right, that's what you do. You're a brick and mortar store. You retail makeup and you have a great online service, and everybody knows Ulta is where you go to find women's goods like, makeup and accessories and hair care products. And here's what we're going to do. We're going to have a bearded, non-binary, so quote unquote, gay guy with a beard and a dress to be your spokesperson. Somebody tell me why that makes sense. I'm sorry, it doesn't. And I wonder, are they selling more makeup? Hey, JP, while I'm talking, see if you can find anything that says whether or not Ulta their stock is going up or down. I'm curious. Is there anything out there saying that Ulta is meeting with success about this? Because I would dare say they just alienated a ton of I can tell you right now, I said it in my monologue, the lovely Charlene's already said she's done with Ulta. I put that thing on my social media this morning, my morning drive about this, and I had multiple comments saying, well, thanks for telling us. I'm through shopping there. I mean, it's just nuts. If you find something, let me know. I do have this piece right now that I pulled off of Not the Bee, which is the serious side of the Babylon Bee. Little snippets they do of things that are real, and they have to call it Not the Bee so you'll know it's not satire, because sometimes fiction reality is worse than fiction. And Not the Bee is talking about this very thing. And you ought to see the pictures. Wow. You ought to see the video. Wow. So there's nothing like a bearded dude in a dress pushing beauty products at Ulta, is there? He says, but now we have the Queer Eye star Jonathan Van Ness, a non-binary grooming expert advertising women's beauty products. Woke apparently still has life. And then it says, there's a certain segment of society that wants to force you to use improper pronouns and affirm that dudes can be girls, and then get you fired from your job if you disagree. But just keep laughing until the woke dies off completely. And that's the thing, man. We got to call it out when we see it. Call it out when we see it and tell them that is actually not real. And oh, by the way, it's hilarious. And oh, by the way, Ulta, you're about to lose some funds. Just saying. Darla from Athens says, done with Ulta. Darla in Athens. Anecdotally, I'd say that Ulta's going to have trouble, depending on where they are. What are you seeing? Anything?
I'm not seeing like a sharp decrease in stocks since the Mulvaney thing, but I'm just seeing a lot of online backlash. Yeah.
Yeah, I am sure. Mike from Eva says, telling a child they were born wrong is just telling them you did not want them to be born this way. It's horrible. Yeah, totally. And then what else we got here? John from Brownsboro says, Stan McDonald is a lawyer, so I'm sure he didn't misspeak when he said our listeners. It defines how all of us ruffians feel listening in. Wow, thank you, brother. Says, you make us feel like part of the family, part of the show. You say the words we need to hear every day. Keep up the good work. Well, I'm going to tell you right now, it's Affirmation Day. I am thankful. It's Thankful Thursday. Isn't that right?
It is perfect to be thankful to our listeners on Thankful Thursday, as we are every day, but especially thankful today.
Before we hit the break, play the thankful sound effect and then take us out, JP. That's worth it.
You got to be more thankful.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. You're a gentleman and a scholar.
We thank you so much for this bountiful harvest of Domino's, KFC, and the always delicious Taco Bell.
Have you said thank you once?
Thank you.
All right, we are back. Rightside Radio. Phil Williams here in the Rightside studio, broadcasting across North Alabama. Solid, conservative, and just plain right. Well, folks, you are in for a treat today. You can probably already see the screen if you're live streaming with us, but sitting here is none other than the Motor City Madman, the guy who has had a 50-year career rocking the world, but also had a 50-year career of having his own opinions out there in the public sector and being known for sharing them. And listen, Ted Nugent, by the way, sold 40 million albums, 6,700 high-octane concerts. I mean, he's setting attendance records everywhere he goes. He just came out with another album after 50 years, Detroit Muscle, and he's on the Ted Nugent Detroit Muscle Tour. A friend of the military, a friend to law enforcement, a friend of the First and Second Amendment, and right now a friend to Rightside Radio. Ted Nugent, how you doing, bud?
I'm doing so good at stupid, Phil, because I live truth, logic, common sense, God, family, country, Constitution, Bill of Rights, 10 Commandments, Golden Rule, that work ethic. I am the man in the arena, law and order, all that controversial stuff, which happens to be, no matter where I show up, Phil, it turns into the right side because I'm always right. It's a burden I've had to carry forever.
You know, it's a hard burden when you're solid, conservative, and just plain right like we are here at Rightside. But you are definitely in good company, my friend. Well, listen, I got to ask you this. All right, before we go too much further and get into your, political and liberty views, you've been.
Oh, by the way,
this...
Phil, excuse me, but
what?
I don't have any political views.
None.
I adhere to the Constitution. It's not a view. I don't even have any opinions about freedom other than that I really like it. But the self-evident truth that you and I celebrate and promote, it has nothing to do with views. King George can kiss my. We have freedoms, and if you want to play King George, we'll meet you at the Concord Bridge. Any questions?
No, none. I'm done. I think we can go ahead and sign off now. The interview is over.
Have a nice day. Drive safely.
All right, let me ask you something, though. All right? You've had a 50-year career rocking the world. I mean, major hits out there that have become part of pop culture, like, Stranglehold, Can't Scratch Fever. I mean, you've been in bands, but you had a solo career too. How do you survive 5 decades in an industry that burns people out in like 3 years?
I do media every day, and thank you for having me on, Phil, because, I have a big mouth. I think the Founding Fathers, in fact, I'm beyond the thinking stage. The Founding Fathers wanted every American to be just like me, to be suspicious of everything, to be a critical thinker before the term is coined, and to stand up for the instinctual, self-evident truths that the American dream, the experiment in self-government, was founded upon. So the way I maintain is that when the hippies tried to put this lie of peer pressure on me, I gave them the finger and cold cocked them, literally and figuratively, and I stood my ground. I've been clean and sober for 74 years. Yeah. And I have to correct you, I haven't been rocking for 50 years. I've been rocking for 66 years. I started back in Detroit with my little combo at the Waltz Malt Shop on Warwick and Grand River in October of 1958.
Nice.
I started playing at sock hops and pool parties and Marilyn McMillan's 13th birthday party in her basement. So I've been at this a long time, but I'm a bow hunter. I hunt with the bow and arrow. I live a martial arts higher level of awareness, and again, clean and sober facilitates and optimizes that higher level of awareness, which applies to my ranching, my farming, my mechanics, I guide and outfit, I write New York Times bestsellers. How about that? The guy who wrote Wango Tango actually writes New York Times bestsellers. Boy, that's a middle finger if I've ever seen one. The point is that God gave me the gift of life. How dare I poison it? And again, it goes back to the bow hunting samurai level of awareness, because if you're not really tuned in to God's miraculous creation as a hands-on participant, you're going to have to buy chicken, because getting close to an animal with a sharp stick is one of the most impossible challenges of mankind. So I've applied that discipline. Whoa, discipline. Is that legal? I've applied the discipline of the martial arts of the mystical flight of the arrow that applies to my guitar playing, that applies to my song unleashing, that applies to the heart and soul performance of 6,800 and tonight in Huntsville, 6,812 fire-breathing rockouts. So that's how I've maintained, because I take good care of myself. I eat venison and I'm alive. I'm clean and sober. That's the secret. That's not a secret. That's the ultimate recipe.
Well, and that's the thing that I think a lot of people overlook, is that in this industry, you can still be clean and sober. And in fact, I actually read up before we got on the air together that there have been others who have been inspired in the industry with you, who have been inspired by the fact that you stood in the middle of it and said, I'm not getting high. Don't give me
Yeah.
the stuff. And And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid conservative, just plain right. Making common sense like a superpower. All right, so I'm in Dipper number 1, which is tracking along with the monologue for the day, the Manhood reboot. That's where I'm at. But we're gonna lay the foundation for some of this. By the way, real quick text, Darla from Athens. Oh, thank you, Darla. She says, by the way, best monologue ever, all caps. Well done, sir. Thank you, Darla. Appreciate you. So let's talk about this. I mean, what are some evidences we're seeing right now of what I would call a failure of manhood or a diminishing of manhood? And by the way, it's not everywhere. It's not. I mean, I'm sitting here, JP, I've known him his whole life. No lack there. My own son, no lack there. I feel pretty good about my manhood. I do. But the reality is, culturally speaking, we have seen a diminishing, a devaluing, a degrading of manhood in the way God intended. I can see some evidences of this. Like, for instance, this is a big one. You can hear how thick it is.
I can concur because I stapled those resources.
Good Lord. Thank you very much for that. Good Lord. This 8-pager from Fox News. I don't understand why it's 8 pages. But anyway, the bottom line is, you've seen the whole thing about men pretending they're women to be in women's sports, right? Happened. Riley Gaines has become a cultural icon for standing up to this. Others have followed and taken heart by her ability to truly take the stand that resonated. And by the way, the fact that it resonated like it did is a clear indication that a lot of people were thinking it, but Riley was the first person to be able to truly visually and verbally take it somewhere. And if you've ever heard her speak, by the way, she came to Huntsville not long ago at a Moms for Liberty dinner. I was there, and listen, she is a prolific speaker. I mean, she stood up there with no notes, and for almost an hour, she went nonstop, and she quoted chapter and verse, and she was so convincing. I mean, God help us if she becomes a lawyer. But that being said, look at this. Fox News has a story that came out today. You may recall that San Jose State University had a women's volleyball team, and they were dealing with a problem. They were dealing with the fact that San Jose State University had a guy playing on the girls' team, and the members of the girls' team were taking issue with it, and they were being told to get in line, or they could lose their scholarships, or they could lose their place on the team. And yet other teams were forfeiting matches against them. There were other teams out there that were saying, we're not going to play because that's not an all-female team, and this is an all-female league. We're not doing it. And so multiple teams, volleyball, were saying, sorry, San Jose, we're not doing it. Well, we also found out later on, though, that there was trouble and strife on the team. It wasn't like all the members of the San Jose's team were like happy about it. They didn't like it. Some of the players actually filed suit against their own university. A new story has come out today, exclusive to Fox News. Former San Jose State University volleyball co-captain Brooke Slusser is her name, Brooke Slusser. She graduated 8 months ago. She was one of those who was claiming foul in all this. The transgender member of her team was someone named Blair Fleming, going by the name of Blair Fleming, a biologically male athlete playing on the women's team. Slusser has now come forward saying that she has learned that Blair Fleming actually conspired with another team to try and get her injured. So basically the transgender on her team allegedly snuck out. And by the way, it wasn't like a rumor. She had one of her co-players was with the transgender player. They went out at night, met up with a player from the team they were playing the next day, and conspired for doing what's called leaving the net open. The trans player's job was to guard the net and was going to leave the net open so that the other team could spike the ball into the face of Brooke Slusser. Why? Because the tranny was mad because Brooke Slusser was taking issue with the tranny being in the locker room and on the team. All right, there's the background story. All of that's horrible. You know what else is horrible? in relation to the dipper I'm doing right now about the Manhood reboot, what's also horrible is San Jose State Athletic Director Jeff Kanya is allowing all this to happen. What I'm telling you is Jeff Kanya had the ability to stop it, had the ability to address it, had the ability, but no, what did he do? He attacked the girls who wouldn't get on board with the transgender agenda. So what he did was, in violation of Title IX and in violation of all this good and normal, Jeff Kanya sacrificed his own manhood by telling the girls to sacrifice their feminine side. Just get over it, ladies. It's the way of the world. He even, oh, by the way, defended their lawsuit. In other words, they were going all in with Jeff Kanya standing right there as the man in the way of what is right. He had the ability to fix it, and he wouldn't. That's men not being men right there. That's exactly what that is. That's the deep dive on this story. Yes, there's a problem with the whole transgender agenda. Yes, there's a problem with a young lady who's a trained athlete who can't play the way she's supposed to play because she's got to deal with this agenda item on her team. But the other piece of the story that's not being addressed, in my opinion, is Jeff Kanya, the San Jose State Athletic Director, who was being interviewed by Fox News Digital. And when they began to ask him about it, he got mad and he stood up after 5 minutes and said, "I'm done." And he walked out of the room. That's where we are. What you got?
So it's just the cowardice and spineless.
Yeah, it is.
It really drives me up a wall with that story because I just picture if that was like my little sister that was playing on the team and I knew that somebody in a position could have helped stop that and was too much of a coward to do anything. Yeah, that it's unbelievable. Especially, I mean, yeah, like where's that guy's manhood to do something to stick up and protect the girls that he's supposed to protect? Instead, he decided, didn't have the guts to do it.
And by the way, we've talked about the show before, but your sister is a pretty solid collegiate athlete right now.
Yeah.
And can you imagine this happening? I mean,
no.
I'm, of course, knowing your family, I'm pretty sure she wouldn't be at that school very much longer.
Yeah, I would say so, yeah.
But that being said, yeah, that right there is an issue that's being perpetrated upon women by a man who had the ability to stop it and chose not to. And that, my friends, to use JP's words, is cowardice. That's absolutely a man sacrificing his manhood. I got more on this, and we're going to talk about why is it the Democrats can't figure out how to, I don't know, recruit men to the cause. Maybe it's because they've forgotten what men are. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. I think that's huge. It's also a lesson that is too often missed by the rest of society, is that you can avoid the peer pressure just by saying no to it. How about that? That's a wild idea, but there it is.
Well, first of all, I don't have any peers. I'm an individual. God only made one Ted Nugent. You can thank your lucky stars for that. And so I dismiss the concept of others putting pressure on me, not, Mrs. Nugent notwithstanding. She's the only one who can mandate squat in my life.
Yes.
So I've been a defiant son of a You gotta love the defiant son of a Who doesn't love a defiant son of a By the way, Phil, look what we just started creating here on tour. If this doesn't say everything about my life,
I'm going to need one. I'm going to need one.
Beautiful. I will give you one because Mike Maloney is my U.S. military warrior.
Mike's a good dude.
And Phil, geez, I know I sound uppity because I'm uppity, and I know I sound high energy because I'm high energy. I actually slept last night. The dogs snuggled with me all night. I have 3 dogs, and they so soothe me after the firestorm sonic bombast of my nightly concerts. But I have such a balanced life. I've already filled feeders this morning. I worked on an irrigation line on our ranch here. I've trained my dogs this morning. I snuggled Mrs. Nugent. But tonight when I get on stage, I'm going to scare people because the energy of what Chuck Berry and Bo Diddley and Little Richard and James Brown and Wilson Pickett and the mighty Motown Funk Brothers, that musical authority, it still permeates. Greg Smith, my bass guitar player, holy smokes. Jason Hartless on drums. I live the definitive, elusive guitar player's dream because of the fire in the audience. Real music lovers demand the best every night, and we perform, we reciprocate, we deliver the beast every night. So I balance it between the calming spirit of the wild outdoor lifestyle, connected to the earth as a rancher, a farmer. And then I put on my guitar, and God goes, I don't remember inviting those notes. And so I live a very adventurous, defiant, individual, freedom-demanding life, and it's really, really good for you.
Well, live large, I say. But let me ask you this. All right, so you go on stage, you scare people. I know this for a fact. You scare liberals every single day. You scare the pants off progressives because they're like, wait a minute, he said what about First Amendment, Second Amendment? He likes guns? Good Lord. Talk to us, Second Amendment. What are your thoughts?
I don't have any thoughts. I'll just tell you the truth. You don't even have to think, because your instinct will tell you that God gave me the precious gift of life, and I have a moral, intellectual, and I believe spiritual obligation to defend that gift of life. Hence the Second Amendment. I have the right to keep and bear arms on planet Earth without any other man giving me paperwork or a license or a permit. And if anyone would like to debate me on that, I'd be more than happy to dance on your skull with truth, logic, and common sense, like I did with Pierce Morgan or anybody else stupid enough to try to tell me they can tell me when, where, if, or how I can defend myself. Keep means it's mine, you can't have it. Bear means I have a couple on me right now and they're loaded. Eat me. It's so simple. Do you need a permit for your First Amendment? Let me answer that. Of course you don't. Where is your First Amendment good? On planet Earth. When I tour Europe, when I tour Britain, wherever I am, I promise you, Phil, it was not a gun-free zone. I have a clean handkerchief, I have a belt tool, I have a pocket knife, I have a chapstick, I have reading glasses, I have a lighter, I have a pocket full of guitar picks and some challenge coins, I have a wallet with ID, and I have a pistol with extra ammo wherever you see me. Because if anybody wants to take me away from a date with my wife, Shemaine, I will cut you in half. Any questions? Am I ambiguous?
I find no ambiguity in your words, sir. In fact, I find them to be truthful and refreshing, to be honest with you.
Beautiful. They're absolutely, I didn't invent precious, but I perfected it by the time I was 9.
Hey, listen, Ted, we're going to take a quick break right now. All right, folks, listen, you're hearing truth spoken to you loud and clear by a man who's just like, kind of known for truth. So stay tuned. We got more with Ted Nugent here on Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and by God, just plain right. We'll be right back. You decided, heck, I've done everything else. Why don't I run for the U.S. Senate?
Lost my mind.
Dude, I ran for the state Senate, and I had a 4-county race. You're all over 67 counties, state of Alabama. First foray into politics is U.S. Senate.
Yeah.
And I mean, you didn't prevail, but you sure made a splash. So first thing I'm going to ask you, before I even ask you any thoughts on it, is would you do it again? Would you, if somebody came to you and said, hey, Mike, we got this office we want you to run for, would you like draw down on them, or would you say, I'll consider that?
Well, I've answered this question many times, especially recently with, obviously coach's decision.
Right.
I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's very, very unlikely that I would do anything. And it would take a special set of circumstances. I am by no means an expert, but I think I understand a little bit how it works now. And I understand when the mission is actually unachievable, which, as it turns out, for me it was, and I just didn't know it.
Huh. Any regrets on running?
So no regrets, because one of the things I went into it with is I didn't want to be sitting on my couch 5 years later saying, man, I could have won that. What if? I didn't want to be that guy.
Yeah.
But if I knew what I know now, I wouldn't do it again. Does that make sense?
It does.
I don't regret doing it because I didn't know what I know now.
Hindsight's 20/20.
Yes.
Yeah.
But man, what an eye-opening experience. And unfortunately, I don't have a good taste in my mouth over how it all played out.
You told me that right after the race.
Yeah.
You and I were at a veterans event.
Yeah.
And I said, would you do it again? You said, wrong time to ask.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
Yeah.
Well, Most folks do sit on their couch, though. Most folks do sit on their couch and don't even consider. And by the way, it's got to be a calling. It's got to be a calling to run. It's got to be a calling to serve. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I thought I could make a difference. I thought I was what most people say they want to see, which is not a career politician, someone with life experiences,
Yeah.
you know, all those things. And I ramp up pretty quick. You know, you don't get into the 160th and
Dude just said solid, conservative, and just plain right. Well, welcome to hour number 2 already. Hour number 2 on a thankful Thursday. We're glad you're with us. I'm still in this dipper right now, the Manhood reboot. So I've got a piece here. By the way, why do I call it a reboot? Because it appears that there is a reboot. I think there's been like this resurgence. It's almost like people have woken up and said, yeah, we're done with all that stuff. We're done with that feminism of you know, that claim of toxic masculinity, that degrading of manhood. We're not doing that anymore. And I think that there are still some out there that claim it, but I think that what we're seeing is literally a reboot right now. So I'm not saying this dipper is called Manhood Reboot because we need it to start. I'm saying it recently started. I think there's almost like you can feel it in the air, if you know what I'm saying. It's like there's a return to normalcy. Remember how Donald Trump did his speech to Congress earlier this year, and he said he was bringing us to the era of common sense. No, I take it back. He said it was a revolution of common sense. That's what I think we're in right now, and I think this is part of it. In fact, I've got a piece right here. Let me just skip down to my stack. Now that I said that, I'll go down to it first. Where'd it go? Yeah, here it is. Piece off of Daily Wire, dateline June 23rd. Says Father's Day of 2025 was not just a usual Hallmark pit stop. It was an inflection point. What are we talking about? Father's Day. It says the frontier has been claimed and the real work begins now. It says consumers shelled out a record $24 billion honoring dad, the most that the National Retail Federation Hallmark has ever logged. That's amazing. Think about that. It said boys need a reassurance, fathers need a reassurance, families need a reassurance, and they finally got some. The White House echoed the mood in his Father's Day proclamation. President Donald Trump praised dads as custodians of our strength and protectors of our security and safety, tying fatherhood to tough on crime, border security, and anti-gender ideology policies. And it says corporate America is relearning some lessons. Things like, you know, Dove Men's Care. They went ahead and sort of changed their ad lines. Bud Light still bleeding from its Dylan Mulvaney misfire. Sales are lingering 30% lower, but they've begun changing the way they brand it, and on purpose, because they realize what fails. And it's amazing. But he goes on to talk about the fact that you've got companies out there like you ever seen Duke Cannon stuff? Have you seen that stuff? Duke Cannon?
No, I don't think so.
First of all, it uses like a nostalgic look. Look up Duke Cannon soap. They you see it?
Yeah, that's interesting.
For the last several years, I have bought Duke Cannon stuff for my son and son-in-law and put it in their stockings.
Okay, yeah, I've seen these before. Yeah, I've seen it on social media. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I love their branding. And their branding is awesome. Duke Cannon cracks me up. In fact, if Duke Cannon wanted to advertise on the show, I'd say, bring it. But the other one, like Black Rifle Coffee. Black Rifle Coffee, founded by Special Forces veterans. It's pitched as Java for America's Heroes, is about to hit $100 million in annual revenue right now because people are buying it because they want that kind of branding. And then you got, you know, things like Republican Representative Byron Donalds in Florida and Burgess Owens introducing a bill to declare fatherhood, quote, essential to the development of all children. And then former NFL safety Jack Brewer, he launched a thing called the National Fatherhood Center to try and lobby for the bill's passage. These are big deals. Hard numbers. The article quotes some hard numbers, y'all. Hard numbers. 17.6 million children still lack a dad in their life. 75% of America's kids live without a father. That's awful. You still got things out there like, you know, boys are lagging behind in the education arena. There's been an uptick in things like, you know, health issues in young boys that were never there in the past because they're less active. In fact, let me just do this. I'm just skipping all around now. I got material in different order. I'm just going to go with it. So the same guy who wrote that article wrote another one that came out around the same time in June of this year. And he talks about the fact that the left did everything it could to rebrand masculinity as toxic somehow. And they didn't just write it like a dictionary entry. They wrote it as like a revising of the DNA of men altogether, like changing everything we understand. He points out in this article that in 2018, the American Psychological Association, get this, you ready for this? This blows your mind. The American Psychological Association updated their guidelines for how to practice with boys and men, in other words, psychological practice with boys and men, by declaring that risk-taking and competitiveness were psychologically harmful masculine virtues. Risk-taking and competitiveness were harmful psychologically to men. They were harmful masculine virtues. Well, you can't be a virtue and also be harmful. Thank you very much. Within months of that coming out in 2018, Gillette aired its infamous We Believe commercial that scolded ordinary dads at backyard barbecues about every one of them harboring a bully within. He points out that a lot of this started in the feminism of the 60s, where they began reframing things like male strength as patriarchal oppression. And it took hold. It was allowed to take hold. It's like men began to be embarrassed to be men, but it got worse as time went on. And then he quotes C.S. Lewis, which I think is a great transition point. C.S. Lewis foresaw this danger, says the article I'm looking at, says, we make men without chests and we expect of them virtue and enterprise. Wow. He said, we laugh at honor and then we're shocked to find traitors in our midst. Listen, this is a big deal. He quotes some of the same stats. 17.6 million American children, nearly 1 in 4, grow up without a father in the house. Barack Obama, he says, Barack Obama himself, the icon of the left, said back in 2009-ish that children are 5 times more likely to live in poverty, 9 times more likely to drop out of school, and 20 times more likely to end up in prison if they don't have a dad in their life. Wow. Didn't do much about it, though, did he? On the 2022 National Assessment of Educational Progress, listen to this. 8th grade girls are outreading boys by 9 points. That's fairly recent. Outreading boys by 9 points. College, same difference. Men have fallen to just 44% of American undergraduates, a gap that's been widening every year since 2011. Someone who I don't know who this is, Christina Hoff Summers, I'm not sure who that is, but they quote her in the article. She said that a school climate, quote, valorizes feelings and denigrates competition and risk and views masculinity as predatory. Natural male exuberance is no longer tolerated. So what you do there, here's the thing. If you go look at, this is me talking now, if you go look at Saul Alinsky's Rules for Radicals, Saul Alinsky, the guy who spoke to the left about activism and gave them the model for how to actually do it. Saul Alinsky's Rules for Radicals, one of the rules, and there's actual rules. One of the rules is you find the target, you fix it, you polarize it, and basically you ridicule it, and then you move past it. So what you do is if you want to do away with something, the way to do that is you find the target, in this case, masculinity, and then you polarize it. You make it something that's less attractive, and then you ridicule it. That means no one will want to be a part of that because they'll be ridiculed too. And that's exactly what they've done. The article that I'm in right now says, attach a moral defect to the identity you want to erase, and then you offer liberation through re-education. Courage degenerates into aggression. Leadership is oppression. Fatherhood is patriarchal privilege. And the outcome is predictable. You abolish all the virtues that civilize male strength, and then you lament the violence or the apathy that follows. That's where we are right now. That's where we've been, at least. But what I'm telling you is, it does not appear to be working. It appears that we are in what I would call a manhood reboot. We are watching right now. It's almost like civilization is waking up from an ugly nap, rubbing their eyes and going, what in God's name just happened? How long have I been asleep? Rip Van Winkle waking up and going, what's changed? Do you know who Rip Van Winkle is? Did I just...
Yeah.
Okay, good. No, you don't.
No.
Okay.
I was hoping I could say yeah in a way that would be clear that I didn't. Yeah.
When you come across that strong, it tells me everything I need to know. That's just a legend. It's a guy who fell asleep for like a whole generation and woke up and the world had changed while he was asleep.
I see.
Okay.
No,
Anyway,
I don't.
I'm
No.
not sure why I asked you that. Democrats scramble to figure out why young men hate them, and the findings are comedy gold. When I come back from this break, I'll wrap this up. Manhood reboot. Democrats are doing all they can. How do we get the boys back? Well, not by having non-binary bearded wonders wear dresses at Ulta, I'll tell you that. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. A couple of IED strikes. We had major snarls with traffic in Baghdad. We rolled up into victory, and I said, "Business is off the table, fellas. Let's get straight to the concert." We pull up in our up-armored Humvees, and we get to where we could see the venue and we could hear it, and we heard the last lick of one of your guitars, and all of a sudden, either you or Toby yelled, "We love you. Thanks for what you do. Good night." And we thought, my God. And so we had just driven through Baghdad and got there just to hear you say, "We're done." And so I'm standing there with my team. We're all dejected. And you and Toby come walking up. I mean, you're about 10 feet away. And you walk up and you get on an armored bus. And I looked at one of my guys, a big galoot. We all had nicknames. His nickname was Animal. I said, "Animal." He goes, "Sir." I said, "Team needs autographs." He goes, "I'm on it." He just got on your bus. And since 2004, I have had the Ted Nugent on a USO's piece of Post-it paper autograph that I picked up in Baghdad. I missed the concert, but I got the autograph. So thank you for
I'll
what
tell
you do for
Phil,
troops.
Toby Keith is a great man in our entertainment industry, especially rock and roll and the country music, which I'm not a big fan of country. By the way, all you country fans, Hee Haw was not a documentary. That was supposed to be a comedy. But anyhow, my point is that Toby is a great American, and he knows that freedom is not free. And that autograph, by the way, if you ever go to Austin, Texas, keep that autograph visible, because the hippies will part like the Red Sea before Moses if you still have a Ted Nugent autograph. But the point is that in all sincerity, I was a graduate of the American anti-education system, so I was a mushy-brained, clueless dolt. They made sure of that. I had never heard of the Bataan Death March. I had no idea what Iwo Jima was. I didn't know what communism was. I thought it was just where, some hippies got together and got high and drooled. So I learned from the heroes of the Vietnam crime that there is a military-industrial congressional complex, and that they manipulate the heroes of the military and law enforcement in many ways, and certainly the citizens of the United States. So I have learned over the years that freedom is very costly. So guys like Toby Keith and I, and again, Sammy Hagar, Steven Tyler, everybody I know, we know that the warriors make the ultimate sacrifice so we can have an American dream. And every night, Phil, I got Army Rangers, Navy SEALs, Green Berets. I got military heroes from every branch, from the Coast Guard to you name it. And I'm moved. My concerts are fire-breathing celebrations of defiance, individualism, Constitution, Bill of Rights, 10 Commandments, Golden Rule, the Great White Buffalo, finding the battered herd and defying the abuse in our government, especially now worse than ever. And I'm surrounded by heroes of the military. So when I get on stage, my feet don't touch the ground, and I convey that uppityness and that freedom demand, not just freedom celebration, but now in the horrors of this punk in the White House who thinks he's the commander-in-chief, who I wouldn't let shovel my dog kennels because I love my dogs. These are tragic times, and I would like to officially, on behalf of good families, and I know the good families. I guide an outfit hunting families from all around America every year. Campfires for the last almost 40 years. Thousands of families. And we have a fun time, and it's uppity, and it's irreverent, and it's a lot of humor. But it always turns into a somber, serious moment when we realize the abuse of power by our government that has manifested itself in a cultural depravity right now. Amen. And so on behalf of good families, I apologize to the heroes of the military and their families that your commander-in-chief is a traitor, that your commander-in-chief violates his sacred oath to the Constitution on an hourly basis, that our government is now not representing we the people, but most emphatically they represent the communist Chinese devils. And that's a horrible thing to say. When I talk like that, people go, well, that's outrageous. It's outrageous because it's true. Yeah. So we bring a prod, a crowbar, slugging skulls every night in a loving way to participate in this sacred experiment in self-government and get some constitutional accountability back in the Democrats are gone. They're just Satanists as far as I'm concerned. But the Republicans who don't stand up against them are even worse. It's like patriots going to Concord Bridge and shooting their own men. So these are harsh words I'm conveying because we just had a lot of fun a moment ago. I'm a funny guy and I'm an upbeat, positive guy, but you can't have positive at its best unless you fight the ugly and the bad. So that's what I do on a daily basis, and I appreciate.
And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid conservative, just plain right. Man, saving the world one soundbite at a time. It's interesting. We're talking about some of the things that, about manhood, about recognizing masculinity. I'm looking on the screen right now, breaking news as I'm speaking. President Trump is hosting a press conference in the White House for the purpose of announcing that he's reestablishing the presidential fitness test in schools. We did that all the time as a kid. I don't know when that went out.
Wow. How about a panel up there of Triple H, Bryson DeChambeau, Harrison Butker, RFK Jr. That's a squad up there with Trump.
That's a stud crew right there. All right, so he has a stud crew of manliness up there with him right now. But yeah,
I did the presidential fitness test in school, so it was after I was out of elementary school that they did that.
I think some of it began to be more elective, like some did it, some didn't. When I was a kid,
everybody did it. When I was a kid, yeah.
Okay, yeah. When I was a kid, it was like a thing that just happened.
Yeah, I mean, it was a part of. I mean, everybody went through those tests, and you either got the presidential or the governor award.
Yeah.
So that's right. Yeah.
Well, we'll see, but that's certainly necessary. Hey, I got the last article that I'm going to cover in this whole section about the Manhood reboot. So as the Manhood reboot is underway, let me just say it's not the left leading the charge. They can't figure it out. They are so wrapped up in trying to create all their little intersectionalities and let's do I don't know, how about white dudes for Harris? That'll work. Can we get Tampon Tim to go out there and do a speech and tell everybody how manly he is and work on his car while he's doing a video? That'll be cool.
Did you see Eric Swallow's video the other day of him bench pressing 135?
Oh my gosh. You look at it and go, all right, maybe that was his warm-up. Yeah. And then again, by the way, I'm glad he's doing something.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure Eric Swallow, he looks like he's a strong dude, so hopefully he can do more than 135.
I don't know. He looks, I don't know. He looks a little doughy.
Well, he is doughy, but
a little soft.
Yeah. Well, he personally is, but yeah.
There's not been a hard day in his life, I don't think. I think he basically, anyway, never mind. I'm going to stop commenting. Yeah. All right. So the bottom line is this: the Democrat Party, peace on red state, dateline July 30th. So yesterday. For decades, it says the Democrat Party was seen as the party of the youth vote. 18 to 29-year-olds would show up at the polls. Just show up at the polls for Democrats. Left-wing politicians would promise them the moon on any given day, the article says. It was like demographic destiny. You are a young man, you will vote Democrat. And then 2024 happened. Chime in if you want to. You're the Gen Z guy in the studio, but young men swung over towards President Donald Trump in record numbers in the past election cycle. Am I right?
Yeah, I saw a poll the other day. I think it was, this may have been yesterday. I think 18 to 29 males was plus 44 for Republicans this past election.
Plus 44?
Yeah. So just a little bit of a swing.
That's a leap.
So Phil, I don't know, this may surprise you, but if your whole party platform for years has been demonizing men of that specific demographic, you're going to radicalize them and they're going to go to the right. And that's what we've seen.
I'm shocked by that.
Yeah. It's almost like
said nobody.
That's the direct result of doing such a thing.
Okay. All right. You and I are sitting here saying, I get it. And I'm not shocked by that. The Democrats, though, are shocked by that. This piece that I've got right here says they actually had to hire an outside entity to do they hired a centrist pro-Democrat group to come in, pay them a lot of money to go out and study in the swing states why the Democrat Party feels the young men have abandoned them. And they went out there, and it says, I mean, pretty clearly, because young men in Democrat circles were feeling helpless. They're watching prices rises, jobs evaporate. They were constantly being, told to watch out for their male privilege. They didn't appreciate it. Things like historical patriarchy was discussed. And so here's the bottom line. The article points out the obvious truth is you don't appeal to young men by hiring pro-Democrat consultants to poke and prod them and then tell them things like historical patriarchy and male privilege are real, because that's just a construct of the liberal left. So the left-wing ritual right, it says, of talking down to young men and casually dismissing them does not work.
No. And I think it seems fairly simple to me. If you just come back and help promote, but because the root of all of this is they're tackling the nuclear family because they want weak dads.
Yeah.
They don't, and my generation is just like the generations before. It's like, we want to be fathers. We want to be husbands. We want to be strong, men. But when the women are all of a sudden attacking men, and it's the men then feel, alienated, and they're going to go to the party that actually is promoting that stuff. So I think that's exactly what we're seeing.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
I think you can find that same kind of thing, not just in manhood per se, in military recruiting right now. One of the reasons it's through the roof, in my opinion, is because they're being told they will be warriors, male and female, but they're being told they will be warriors, that you have a job focus. It is to defeat and deter the enemies of the United States, and we're going to make you the best in the world at it. And people are flocking to the recruiters' offices now.
Yeah.
It's the same with young men. You tell a young man, you do the things that you're good at. We affirm you as to who you are. Oh, by the way, be the man. No, there's nothing wrong with being the man.
Yeah.
And guess what? People will be the man.
And now I'll add one more thing. I think my generation of conservatives may actually be even more to the right than a generation before us, because this is a generation of Republicans that they're strong on mass deportations. They want all of the wokeness out of everything. But it's almost a reaction to the wokeness of, we're coming way back, and we may have been going more conservative than the generation before us. And there's been little instances, like where the Gen Z conservatives have almost been against Trump a little bit, like on the Epstein files, stuff like that. But the amnesty, floating up from the administration, it's like those little instances. I've seen the left try to be like, oh, this generation is turning against Trump. It's like, no, they're almost upset because Trump isn't far right enough, on these issues. So it's not like this generation is going to the left. They're going to the right, and they're even holding Trump when Trump's even a little bit like, maybe amnesty. That's like, no.
Yeah.
We're holding your feet to the fire. To be
I know we still
conservative.
got like the Antifa thugs. We still got the college skulls full of mush waving their Palestinian flags.
Mhm.
But I really do believe you're right. I think we're seeing the reboot right now. I think we're seeing it become far more acceptable once again to be that which God has created us to be. And so, yeah. Hey, I'll close out with a couple of quick texts. Great comments, by the way. Alif Mathin says, "Hey, Phil, Christina Hoff Sommers, that I quoted a minute ago, wrote the epic book entitled, quote, The War on Boys." Okay, I did not know this. Rightside Ruffians need to make it required reading. She's a former feminist, and it was her research into what is being perpetrated against boys that changed her. Wow, how cool is that? Amazing what truth will do. All right, listen, we're taking a break. That's Dipper number 1. It's Thankful Thursday. We're coming right back with Butters and Lee. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back.
Doing that because Mike Maloney said that's what you do. And as an Army Ranger, even if you were just a hardware store operator, which it might be even just as important as an Army Ranger, and my dogs are responding now.
Your dogs like Rangers, I can tell.
We thank you, and we thank the Patriots who are now engaging. And I hope everybody joining us right now, Phil, joins the Nugent family and millions of American families at hunternation.org. It sounds too simple to be true. HunterNation.org made a difference in Virginia. We made a difference in certainly the 2016 election in Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania, because we got the ultimate conservatives, which will have a hunting license in their pocket, to finally get their head out of their ass and vote their core values, God, family, country, law, and order. And we're making a difference. HunterNation.org. I'm telling you, it's that simple. If the licensed hunters of America voted their conscience, we would get rid of these horrible oath-violating monsters that infest our government right now.
Well, and that's the thing. If freedom-loving people will band together, it's amazing what can actually happen. And so
it'll guide America back to that shining city in the hill. These sound like rhetoric, but
Nope,
the evidence is irrefutable. Look what we did in Texas. A bunch of sleepy goofballs in Texas let their school boards bring in drag queens to teach pornography to our children. And then they finally woke up and went, "You're doing what?" And so we completely swept the school boards here in Texas because parents finally acted like parents and we the people. We've got to be more involved. There's not a mayor, a congressman, a senator, or a governor, or anybody in the government that doesn't know what Ted Nugent stands for, because I harass them because they work for me. What a concept. Boy, he's radical. You're damn right I'm radical.
This is awesome. All right, I want to quit my job and go on tour with Ted. That's Boomer. That's what
it's
I'm
so
doing.
much fun.
I'm out of here. I'm going on the Detroit Muscle Tour. I am on it. Ted, we're about to take a break right now. We're going to come back to this break and wrap this up. You are an amazing individual. Thank you for being an American. All right, listen, folks, we got plenty more. This show is like packed full. And if you thought this was the end of it, stand by. I'm sure there's more. In fact, I'm going to want to find out, just for grins, what he thinks about cancel culture. I can only imagine. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid conservative, just plain freaking right. We'll be right back.
Thank you.
Well, listen, Ted, as we wrap this thing up, let me ask you this. Cancel culture. You know, the latest thing we're seeing out there right now from the liberals, doxing people, coming after them. How dare you think differently than me? And I know you see it in your industry. I know you don't respond to it, but so much of your industry does. They cave. I guess they're afraid they're not going to sell the next album or something, maybe miss a royalty or three. But the reality is this: cancel culture is out there. It's the latest tactic. It's the suppression piece. It's the psyops on the world that we're seeing, especially from the liberal side. Your thoughts on others needing to stand up? We know where you stand.
Well, and the real tragedy, the heartbreaking, is that we became an experiment in self-government because we knew that kings and tyrants and emperors were punks, that they were slave drivers, that they were power-abusing evil people controlling us. And so we met them at Concord Bridge and we shot them in the face. That's my battle cry every day. You tell me to do something stupid that I don't believe in, that's immoral, and that violates my... I'm a sheriff deputy for the last 39 years. I take that secret oath. I've conducted federal raids with some good federal agents. I think there's 9 of them. And it's really a tragic time. But those words have iron. That Constitution, that Bill of Rights, the 10 Commandments, the Golden Rule. Come on. These are the foundation of freedom, life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. And you would just cry tears of blood if you saw the weak, soulless, spinelessness in my musical industry, where these great A-list artists, and I'm not going to name them, because if they want to keep it hidden, I'll respect that, though I don't respect that. I'm talking the A-listers of A-listers that will tell me, "Thanks, Ted, for standing up."
Rightside ruffians out there, you are listening to Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. Covering down on some major ground across the southeast U.S. of A. Y'all, I'm talking about this show. This show goes like Huntsville over to Chattanooga. I'm talking about Tuscaloosa over to Gadsden. I mean, all the way down to that loveliest little village on the plains we call Auburn, straight across the line to what we call, once again, Fort Benning. And oh yeah, big old patches of North Georgia and Mississippi all thrown in for good measure. And then, oh, by the way, that's just the radio. Then there's all y'all in the whole wide world going to the World Wide Web and live streaming the show, watching the insides of the studio on places like Facebook and X and YouTube and Rumble and our website, rightsidemedia.org. And then all you podcasters who catch it after the fact. Listen, the bottom line is, wherever you catch this show, I say it multiple times over the show every day, wherever you catch this show, we see the numbers, we know you're there, and we appreciate it more than you could possibly even know. All right, this is the thing we do once a week. It's Thankful Thursday. There's some other people that we're thankful for who come in and do a gig with us and do other stuff in the background. And yeah, we're gonna jump right on in. So let me just call the roll on this little situation we got here. So the dynamic diva of demagoguery from up yonder in the northern reaches of our listening area, that would be Lee from Huntsville. Are you there?
I am here.
How do you like being the dynamic diva of demagoguery?
I like it. You always come up with something good for me.
And then sitting here in the studio with me right now, returned from his family vacation, the Boudreaux of bombastic balderdash. That'd be Butters. How you doing, man?
I'm going to have to think about that one for a minute.
The Boudreaux of bombastic balderdash. Butters.
Have to be here.
I pronounce a quorum. We now have the whoop whoops for Butters and Lee. All right, you guys, Butters and Lee, you know the deal. Every time we do this, first round is me asking you questions. Second round is you asking me questions. Here's your first question. Are you prepared? Here we go. Notice I didn't wait for the answer. Recent work in the U.S. Senate. And yes, the U.S. Senate does work. But recent work in the U.S. Senate has created what's been officially dubbed the Pelosi Act, which I think is hilarious. But the Pelosi Act is actually legislation designed to bar the members of the House and Senate from being able to engage in stock trading. I want to know your thoughts. And how do you like the name Pelosi Act? Well, I know how she feels because she's told me before, but I'm going to go to Lee from Huntsville first. What do you think, Lee?
I think it's a very appropriate name, first of all. Nancy Pelosi and her husband have dramatically increased their wealth while she has been in office. And I mean dramatically. And that's not why people should go to Congress, be it the House or the Senate, is to enrich themselves. And I have to ask anybody running right now, are you going to promise that when you go up there, you're not going to trade stocks, you're not going to enrich yourself? Because it seems like that's what people go up there for. It's like, instead of serving the people, the government's just serving them. And it's dishonest and gross. And I will say this, Josh Hawley, the one who's put out this bill, he does not have and does not trade stocks. So there's not many like him.
Yeah, there's not. I recognize. I'll tell you what. I'm not going to poison the well. I'm going straight to Butters first. Let me do that. I was about to just chime right in, but Butterman, stock trading, Pelosi Act. What are your thoughts?
Look, the concept is fine. Yeah, okay, but what's really going to happen? Nothing. This is a political charade. This is a game to play so that they can go, oh, the right, the people on the right, they don't support it. They're fine with manipulating the government and get everybody worked up and mad. The reality is at that level, particularly, you pass this, there's good lawyers out there that'll find other ways, oh, well, no, the company that I own owns the stocks. I don't own any of the stock. This is ridiculousness and silliness. How about we go after focusing on holding people actually accountable for stuff that's already against the law? I don't know. Again, yeah, the concept, sure. I would like to think that anyone that goes up there would think I probably should put people that I represent before myself. But this is just a game they're playing, in my opinion.
Okay, so let me lay a couple things.
Good name,
out
though.
There. Good name, Pelosi Act. Let me lay a couple things out there to make sure that I have seasoned the discussion with some reality there. And I'm not saying y'all aren't saying, I'm just saying I want to make sure that the audience hears these things. First of all, every one of the members of the House and Senate is required to do a financial disclosure filing every year and say what stocks that they have in their portfolio. So that already happens. And that's why we can see what Nancy Pelosi does, because she has to disclose it. However, the question then becomes the insider trading issue. Did you know something was about to happen? Was there a major government contract about to be let and you bought Boeing real quick before we went to the, buy, new tankers from Boeing or whatever else? And the other piece of this is, though, that the laws are already in place for ethics violations. So do we need new laws? Here's the thing that some people do, and I know you just said it kind of. They will put their stock portfolios into what's known as a blind trust. They're not allowed to interact with it. They have to entrust someone else to handle it for them during their years in office. At some point, I think JP and I were talking earlier, and I got mixed feelings on this because having been a public official, I'll just tell you, you still have to make a living. And I know guys, Mo Brooks being one, who used to sleep in his office in DC because it's so expensive to live in DC. Unless you were rich when you got there, it's hard to get by on the salary. Some may say 180,000 a year, that's not enough. Well, if you have a house back here too, no, it's probably not. It's getting tight. So I wonder how we say we need people who don't care, or we only need people who are super rich already to serve. When do we cut off their ability to do what everybody else in the nation is allowed to do? Lee, you want to weigh in again?
When you're saying, I don't mind if they're putting their money in broad, stock portfolios or something. I'm talking about betting on specific things that they have insider information on that no one else does. I mean, look at Martha Stewart. For God's sake, she went to jail.
Yes.
The exact same thing these people do.
I agree with that.
And let me be clear. I don't disagree with Lee at all on what they should be doing. But what they should be doing and what all of this is going to actually result in, it's two different conversations in my mind. And so I'd rather because who's going to hold them? They're already not holding people accountable for already existing laws. I mean, what's that going to look like? So they pass this and high five each other, and then
I'll be honest, I think it dies. I don't think they pass it.
Oh, I don't think so either.
Oh, it's not going to pass.
It's got to be brought up on the calendar. It's one of those bills that it's going to look good for a while. I don't know though. And here's the thing. I tell you what's interesting though is the fact that they nearly named it the Pelosi Act.
And if she really believed in it, how long has she been in Congress? How long has she had to actually?
Oh yeah.
And
listen, you can look at her portfolio. You can see things that happen
30,
within
40 years.
years.
This is all a political stunt.
Next question.
We need a term limit.
Oh, brother, sister, I'm with you on that one. Listen, that's a whole nother. We could do a whole nother segment on that.
We can do a whole show on that.
We could do a whole show on that. All right, next question. Sydney Sweeney did an ad with American Eagle. So let me ask you this: has the left has gone bananas over this? The pink-haired nose ring crowd is just seeing that they're actually calling it things like racism, white socialism. There's just ridiculous things being said. But let me ask you this: are they getting any traction out of it? Is the left getting any traction out of bashing American Eagle for the Sydney Sweeney ads, or are they just making fools of themselves? You first, Butters.
They're absolutely getting traction.
You think so?
Oh, it's moving them further and further away from most people.
Oh, okay. Traction in the wrong direction.
They're just speeding their demise.
So you're saying traction in reverse.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Now this is it. It's great in that it's given traction. I think it's making it okay for a lot of people to talk about this, which is amazing because it's a conversation that needs to be had, and people going, hey, it's kind of okay to have pretty people in advertising, because I don't want to feel like I'm going to look fat if I buy these jeans. So if I think I'm going to look hot because I look like yes, I think they're idiots for, I mean, it's gaining traction for us.
It's gaining traction
against woke ridiculousness,
and it's gaining traction for them going in reverse.
Yes.
That's hilarious. All right. So tell me, Lee, what do you think? Is the left getting any traction for their cause by bashing American Eagle?
No, not at all. And I'll tell you why. Numbers don't lie. Their stock is up on 20%.
Oh, wow.
So the left can, just throw their sucker in the dirt and leave. No one, sex sells, period. And American Eagle understands their customer, and they understand who's buying their stuff, and they understand what they want to see in advertising. And it's not, I don't care male or female, someone with a big fat roll hanging over their jeans. That doesn't sell jeans. And it's just, they need to understand that this is a play on words. This has been done forever and ever. What about Calvin Klein way back when? Remember the Brooke Shields, like nothing comes between me and my Calvin Klein, she has no underwear on. I'm saying, like, there's always these sultry jeans commercials. That will never change because they understand who they're selling to and what they're selling. And when you get a 20% increase in your stock price, you're doing pretty good. And she's a pretty lady who, sells clothes. Great. And no one said a thing about when Beyonce did a jeans commercial. What's up with that?
She did a jeans commercial?
She did almost the same type commercial.
Yeah, Phil, I don't think you and I are the target audience.
We're not the target audience, apparently.
Either of these ad campaigns.
Beyonce ads. I'm just saying.
And it was like Levi's, but it was kind of the sexy, I look good, I have good jeans, or Beyonce has good jeans, or something. It's almost the same thing. And I'm saying, look at what they choose to get angry at. You know what this is? This is a bunch of purple hair, nose ring, ugly women who hate pretty women. That's what this is.
So what we have is an ugly girl versus the pretty girl cat fight going on. What you're saying?
Yes,
Well, I mean,
it.
I'll reiterate. I think it makes it okay to have this discussion of just like so many things that have occurred since Trump took office. It makes it okay for people to go, hey, I kind of like, I was okay with the hot chicken jeans and the ads. Oh, me too. Oh, me too. And then it just it's a domino effect. And I think it's great to see.
I think Dunkin' Donuts is already getting on board. They came out with their male version of this.
Oh, yeah.
But the funniest one I saw, I'll say, go ahead. What you got? Lee, what'd you say?
I was going to say, if you don't know who that guy is, he's on one of the hottest shows of the summer. So it's like a tween romance thing with two brothers and a girl. And that's why they have this guy. Because that's why he says I'm like Mr. Hot Summer or whatever. That's why, because he's on this show. And it's like a big deal. All I'm saying is that's why he's on there. And he has a great tan for a white guy, right? So that's why they put him, he's just naturally tan. Okay, I don't see a thing wrong. I guarantee you that the advertising agencies are thrilled to be able to put, really beautiful people back in ads instead of having to stick a bunch of ugly fat people in there. They're thrilled.
Jardians should take note. Go ahead.
So real quick point. I will say it highlights how most of these corporations really do just flow with the tide. And like when they're doing these political stunts
what's trending, what's trending,
they don't actually care about, what they care about selling their product, and they're going to do what they feel is going to work.
But every once in a while, you see one who's willing to buck the trend and then set a new trend. And so there you go. All right. We ran long. You guys are just super talkative. All right. Butters and Lee coming back with round number 2. This is where they ask me questions, and I just wait with bated breath, see if I've got an answer. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Second Amendment rights. We really appreciate it. I'm not going to do it. Those liberals, they're good for $40 million a year for me. What a punk. What a spineless little fleeb. If our founding fathers would have thought that, we'd still be having jackbooted English punks coming into our neighborhood and taking our women and our productivity. I mean, every school in America should show Old Yeller, so kids are prepared for an emotional roller coaster.
Nice.
I'm not kidding.
No, I get it.
The teachers union defy me because they stand for communism. I stand for freedom. Every school should have an Old Yeller curriculum, a Patriot movie curriculum, a Braveheart movie curriculum, and a Gladiator movie curriculum, because that's where we came from, where men owned men. No man can own me. If you try to own me, I will take you out. And I learned this because I train with the SEALs and the Rangers. I train with these heroes, the Green Berets. My wife Shemaine and I are honored beyond words, and you can see I'm not ever looking for words. We are invited into Delta Force each year. Every night I have Delta Force, special forces. I have the warriors that put their lives on the line and drag their buddies out in body bags and body parts, so that I can have the freedom to move across state lines and around this country and speak my mind and keep and bear arms. So I take this stuff serious. And you can tell I'm a funny guy. If you're not having fun with me, you're just weird. But I compartmentalize. I make sure I optimize the good, while during the day I fight the bad and the ugly. So the liberals are scared to death of me. They can't debate me, so they lie and they hate and they just, when Nancy Pelosi's eyebrows migrate to the back of her skull, that's me. You know how she looks like she's in an F-22 taking G-forces that would kill a moral human being? That's me, causing much grief and pain and consternation in the liberal Marxist communist Joe Biden gangster family world. That's me. I drive them crazy, and I couldn't be more proud.
Well, I tell you what, I'm proud. My spine is straighter. If my spine could have been straighter, it is straighter for having spent time with you. Hey, let me ask you this. Just kind of, you hit a mark that I wanted to ask you about, and you did touch on it. There are folks that won't speak up in your industry.
a shame.
And it is a shame. But there's folks like you, there's folks like Toby Keith, there's folks like Kid Rock, there's a few others that are willing to say, we don't care what you say. We love America. We love who we are. We love liberty. Who else can you think of out there right now in your industry that is saying, I'm an American, proud of it. You can just go ahead and just pound sand.
Ricky Medlock of Leonard Skinner, he's not afraid to speak up. He doesn't do a lot of media, but when he does, he's never hesitant to stand up for God, family, country, law, and order, which is the controversial elements of the left.
Go figure.
It's just unbelievable. But I think you're right. Kid Rock has a good guide and outfitter. I mean, he's from Detroit, and Detroit has a great energy and a great attitude. And Toby's unafraid. But boy, I'm not going to name some names that you would just be shocked that they tell me. I'm not saying anything. Those liberals pay my way. Yeah. And it's just a heartbreaker because this is a culture war that has turned into a spiritual war. And everything that Uncle Sam is doing, think of the heartbreak, Phil. Everything Uncle Sam is doing is what a communist invader would do. No borders, the importation of fentanyl killing Americans, the child sex trafficking across a non-existent border, leaving $100 billion worth of our tax-paid state-of-the-art military weaponry in the hands of the Taliban? Who would do that but a Satan-driven traitor, Joe Biden? I mean, it's just tragic. Donald Trump, if you hate Donald Trump, you hate America because everything he did made America stronger, made it more prosperous, made it more secure. If you hate Donald Trump, you have for brains. You can edit that as you see fit.
Hey, well, you know what? I don't disagree with the thing you just said. And the reality is this. We have got to stand up. We have got to have people that are willing to put their names on the line. We've got to be willing to actually band together to make sure that we have got someone to our left and right in the foxhole with us. And if we move forward in that regard, there's not much they can do. It's when we find ourselves standing out there on an island because nobody else will speak up with us that we're more vulnerable. And
I think this is Phil. I think this hat. A buddy of mine had me sign one. 50,000 hats later, I autograph every I will not comply hat. My right hand, I mean, it could fuel the world. I sign these every day, and people are buying them because this spirit, this battle cry, I will not comply. If you try to shut down my mom and pop business, I will not comply. If you send an ATF agent to my porch to check on my gun inventory, I will not comply. If you want these hats,
and we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. Making common sense like a superpower. All right, we're going back to round two of Butters and Lee. This time we flipped the script and they asked me questions. All right, Lee went first last time, so Butterman, I'm coming to you. Pray tell, what is your question from Wa?
So, Sig Sauer.
Oh,
I don't know if you.
Oh, I already know where you're going.
If you've, I don't know if you like guns or not.
I'm a gun guy.
So for those of y'all in the audience, all three of you that probably aren't familiar with what's going on with guns, because I know we've got a lot of gun nuts. We're in Alabama, right? The P320 and all these issues that the accidental discharge,
the pistol,
the airman, unfortunately, dying from an accidental discharge, everything's banned. I guess what are your thoughts on this? The implication of SIG. What are your general thoughts on a lot of this that's going on?
Well, I think SIG's got a problem. I mean, SIG's got a problem because and by the way, I've been tracking this story just a little bit, not in great detail. I'm a Glock guy, but I respect SIG. They've always had a great reputation until this SIG P320 came out. And then something has happened. And for those who don't know, what we're talking about is it's not just a negligent discharge. It's a spontaneous negligent discharge. Basically it's not the operator for reasons that we have not figured out yet. The P320 has occasionally been alleged to have just fired on its own. And if you can't keep one in the chamber, what the heck? And so this is, by the way, the issue firearm for a lot of the military. And it's also a lot of police carry and a lot of sports, shooters carry.
It's replaced the Beretta.
Yeah, it
as I
has.
understand
this is a
Big
big
contract.
deal. The big deal. So the P320's got problems. Well, SIG has actually acknowledged the problem, and they haven't formally said we're at fault. Here's what, but they're saying things like we're working with the U.S. Air Force to assess the issue. They're not denying it, and so what we have here is a true identity crisis going on, where you have a vaunted name in the gun industry that suddenly has this product that is in mass production right now under major contract, and the Air Force has actually stopped the use currently of the SIG P320. So what do I think about it? I think SIG's got a big problem. I also think I'm running out of time, so I got to get to Lee. But yeah, that's an amazing thing to watch, man. Wow. Leister, what question do you have for me with about 3 minutes left?
Yeah, and my favorite's a P365.
There you go.
Please, let's not have. My mom's already worried it's going to jump up and shoot on its own, so let's not encourage her. Okay. So my question is, I don't know if you've been following the Candace Owens thing. I want your attorney opinion. How common is it for someone within another government, say, because it's the French president and his wife suing her in the U.S. for a documentary she did claiming his wife was formerly a man, and they chose Delaware. So can you tell me how common it is, if you know what the suit is about and why they would choose Delaware?
I don't know for a fact why they chose Delaware, but I can imagine why they chose Delaware is because Candace Owens probably has incorporated her brand, and it's very common for people to use the state of Delaware for their incorporation. It doesn't matter where you're based. They have very broad and kind of easy to work with incorporation laws there, and it's real common for you to be living in Florida as a podcaster influencer, and you're incorporated in the state of Delaware. So I got about a minute left. I'll also tell you too that do I think that there's going to be the ability for Macron to make the suit good? It's a real high bar. So defamation or slander against a public official, it's a really high bar. Lawyer Phil saying it's more than just like if you and I were to say something bad about each other, it'd be easier to prove. A public official is considered to be almost fair game unless you can prove that it was done with reckless disregard for the truth and the intent to actually harm the other person. So if they can show that Candace knew that this was not true and she really wanted to hurt Macron by saying it, and here's the reason why, well, then they would have a case potentially, and that's why they probably chose Delaware too. So there you go. That was Lawyer Phil times 2, I guess.
Well, so what's your opinion? Is his wife formerly a man?
I have no idea.
She looks like one.
She don't want to get accused of defamation.
She's
here.
extremely awkward looking, but I cannot say that I know her gender at birth. I have no idea. Candace is stepping on thin ice. I will tell you that. All right, you guys, appreciate you both. That's Butters and Lee. Every Thankful Thursday, we do it halfway through hour number 2. Bill Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back.
There by being an average person.
Nope.
You have to be able to ramp up pretty quick. You don't end up with a business with 700 people in 12 years and make the Inc. 5,000 list 12 times by being an average. I mean, and we started in the worst possible year ever, which was 2008.
Oh,
Everybody
wow.
said, why are you doing this? This is a terrible time. So point being, I didn't have a lot of political experience, but I can guarantee I could have figured it out. I mean, there are some very intelligent, capable, good people there, but there's also some that are the opposite end of the spectrum.
Yes, there are.
Yeah.
In fact, there are some who don't deserve the office, and some you look at them and go, how'd you even get the office? Let me ask you, you decided, heck, I've done everything else. Why don't I run for the U.S. Senate?
Lost my mind.
Dude, I ran for the state Senate, and I had a 4-county race. You're all over 67 counties, state of Alabama. First foray into politics is U.S. Senate.
Yeah.
And I mean, you didn't prevail, but you sure made a splash. So first thing I'm going to ask you, before I even ask you any thoughts on it, is would you do it again? Would you, if somebody came to you and said, hey, Mike, we got this office we want you to run for, would you like draw down on them, or would you say, I'll consider that?
Well, I've answered this question many times, especially recently with, obviously coach's decision.
Right.
I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's very, very unlikely that I would do anything. And it would take a special set of circumstances. I am by no means an expert, but I think I understand a little bit how it works now, and I understand when the mission is actually unachievable, which, as it turns out, for me it was, and I just didn't know it.
Any regrets on running?
So, no regrets, because one of the things I went into it with is I didn't want to be sitting on my couch 5 years later saying, "Man, I could have won that." What if? I didn't want to be that guy.
Yeah.
But if I knew what I know now, I wouldn't do it again. Does that make sense?
It does.
I don't regret doing it because I didn't know what I know
Hindsight's
now.
20/20.
Yes.
Yeah.
But man, what an eye-opening experience. And unfortunately, I don't have a good taste in my mouth over how it all played out.
You told me that right after the race.
Yeah.
You and I were at a veterans event.
Yeah.
And I said, would you do it again? You said, wrong time to ask.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or something like that.
Yeah.
Most folks do sit on their couch, though. Most folks do sit on their couch and don't even consider. And by the way, it's got to be a calling. It's got to be a calling to run. It's got to be a calling to serve.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, I thought I could make a difference. I thought I was what most people say they want to see, which is not a career politician, someone with life experiences, all those things. And I ramp up pretty quick. You don't get into the 160th and succeed there by being an average person.
Nope.
You have to be able to ramp up pretty quick. You don't end up with a business with 700 people in 12 years and make the Inc. 5,000 list 12 times by being an average. I mean, and we started in the worst possible year ever, which was 2008.
Oh,
Everybody
wow.
said, "Why are you doing this? This is
Yeah.
a terrible time." So point being, I didn't have a lot of political experience, but I can guarantee I could have figured it out. I mean, there were some very intelligent, capable, good people there, but there's also some that are the opposite end of the spectrum.
Yes, there are.
Yeah.
In fact, there are some who don't deserve the office, and some you look at them and go, how'd you even get the office? So this is a turbulent time. How long after the fall of Saigon did you remain in the country? You personally remain in the country?
4 years.
So 4 years,
And
from
I think
1979-ish.
1979's 2 weeks after my birthday, which is in May, it's when my sister and I escaped Vietnam.
Okay, well, tell me about that, because I know in one of the speeches of yours that I reviewed, it wasn't your whole family that came out.
Right.
It was just a few, and your parents had to make a choice, basically.
Yes.
So what was that family discussion like to decide who leaves and who stays?
Gosh, I remember that night very clearly. I had several aunts and uncles. They were able to afford to pay passages. And when I say pay passages to leave Vietnam, meant that you're paying the official to look this way so you can escape
So
this
this is
way.
a bribe.
It's a bribe. So if you get caught, they can throw you in jail. So basically, you bribe the government to leave. So I had a few aunts and uncles that had signed up to leave Vietnam on this riverboat, and they're going to Australia because they felt Australia is the safest place to be. And also, we have a few cousins that already left Vietnam before the fall of Saigon, and they settled in Australia.
Okay.
So overnight, one of my aunt came home and told my dad that there may be some empty spots on this refugee boat, and that we should take the empty spots. And there's 8 of us in the family, my parents and 6 kids, me being the oldest.
Okay. How old were you at the time?
I was 12.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And basically, my parents have only a few hours to decide this. And my parents, of course, at this time in 1979, everybody was struggling. There was we don't have a whole lot of money. And I know it was a lot of sacrifice for my parents to even, bribe someone to the official for me and my sister to leave. And so, yeah, there were only enough money for just 2 passages. And so they picked me, being the oldest. I was 12. And my next sister, she was she's a little bit over 10 years old, to leave with my aunt and uncle. And my parent has to make the decision overnight. I mean, I just can't imagine.
No.
The pain and
Do you remember them telling you?
I remember, yeah. And I remember my.
We just said solid conservative and just plain right. Well, welcome to hour number 3 on a thankful Thursday. Thankful. We are thankful. We're thankful for all of you. We're thankful that it's Thursday because tomorrow's Friday. That's even better. I'm going to be jumping into the next dipper here in a minute. The question that I'm going to be asking you to consider is Mexico a failed state? Is it? Well, we'll dialogue about that here in a moment. Let me get some text messages, though, and catch up. You guys want to text me your thoughts on whatever we've been talking about, 833-687-4448. That's 833-68-RIGHT. You can text it or call it. Same number for both. Jamie from Pulaski, Tennessee. Okay, this is a long text, and it looks like it's more of a historical thing. Jamie, I'm probably not going to be able to get to this right now, but I see what you're doing. You're telling me that 75 years ago today in Korea, in the Korean War, July 31st, I will get back to that text in a little bit, but it looks like, is he telling me his dad? Was it his dad he was talking about? Anyway, bottom line is, looks like a great history lesson. Jamie from Pulaski, Tennessee, thank you so much. Tom from Decatur, Alabama says, liberals cannot attract men to liberal causes because a major plank in their agenda is to emasculate and vilify any man that acts like one. Well said, and that pretty much sums up the dipper we did right there. I spent an hour saying what it took Tom, only about 1 sentence. Thomas Mathen says, you've proposed that Dems have forgotten what, quote, real men are. Seems like Dems are perhaps, quote, asexual because their favorite SCOTUS justice could not even define what a woman was either during the Senate advise and consent hearing. Yeah, isn't that amazing? So Ketanji Brown Jackson, Thomas brings up the point. Ketanji Brown Jackson, during her Senate confirmation proceedings, she was asked, can you define a woman? And she refused to do so, saying she was not a biologist. Like, what? My next question is, if you can't define a woman and a case comes before the Supreme Court that deals with transgenderism, oh, wait, that's right, we've already had them. Then are you going to be able to rule on that case with some measure of objectivity?
My favorite explanation for it, and Charlie Kirk did a great, there's a great bit with him on a college campus having a debate with a college student, and he asked him what a woman is, and they said, well, it's somebody that identifies as a woman. He goes, okay, great. What are they identifying as? A woman. What is that? Someone who identifies. It's circular reasoning. So it's like, if you can't identify what a woman is in the first place, then saying a woman is somebody who identifies as a woman, that's circular reasoning.
That's good. Charlie Kirk, man, that guy, he can dismantle people with words.
Yes.
Mark Mathen says, Senator Williams, you should check out actor Lucas Black's campaign on bringing masculinity back in boys. He's building a following on Facebook and Snapchat, biblically founded to boot. You familiar with him, Lucas Black? I'm not either. All right, well, check it out, Mark. Thank you very much. Keith from Parts Unknown. That's what it says. Keith from Parts Unknown says the left will just not accept that the tide has turned, and most average folks do not agree with their woke agenda. Good summary. Thank you very much. Jenkins from Sneed, Alabama. That's a pretty little town, by the way. Jenkins from Sneed, Alabama says, as a Gen Z conservative, I can confirm that JP is right on the Gen Z being more conservative now than ever. There you have it. JP, you got groupies and you got Gen Z groupies over there in Sneed, Alabama. Great little town.
Yeah, I can confirm. Great little town, yeah.
Yeah. Jenny from Decatur. Do you remember when Pelosi was interviewed on late night television during COVID when we were told to stay home? She had imported all kinds of ice cream and told the interviewer that was how she was making it through COVID. Huge commercial freezer in her humongous kitchen. Yeah, and by the way, I don't fault somebody for having a big kitchen or for liking ice cream, but it was also probably one of the most out of touch moments I've ever seen. It's like I'm in my ivory tower and life is good. I just dive into the extra mounds of ice cream that I have while everybody else is out there trying to figure out how to go to work. Yeah, that was awful. Jason from Huntsville says, hey, Phil, as much as I agree with the Pelosi Act, they have 30 days to report trades within their accounts, and I kind of like copying them, so I do. However, the amount of shares that they own in many of these companies is enough for them to be improperly influenced by legislation and super PACs. Big Pharma is a perfect example. And that is a great point. And they have a duty to recuse if that's the case on a bill that comes before them. But you're right, they probably don't.
Well, if this does get passed, which I don't think it will, the guy who ran the Pelosi tracker is going to be in trouble.
There's a Pelosi tracker. That's right.
Yeah.
I think that's hilarious.
Yeah.
If you're into stocks, you can look up the Pelosi tracker. They have an app. You can see what she's doing, and then you want to copy it because she might have information. That's hilarious. That's also ingenious, to be honest with you.
It really is. Yeah.
Richard from Madison says, sometimes you have a company who bends over backwards to go woke, and you end up with the Bud Light debacle. Yep. There you go. That's exactly right. Jack from Huntsville says, somewhere in the attic with my stashed away stuff, I have a presidential fitness award. Oh, the glory days. Said youth is indeed wasted on the young. Glad President Trump is bringing it back. And for JP and your young listeners, relish your youth and vigor and go for it. There you go. There's your advice of the day, man.
Well, so I looked it up. They ended the presidential award in 2013, and when that was, I would have been 10 at the time. I think do vaguely remember them stopping it when I was around in the 5th grade or so. So it was during Obama's administration.
So Obama killed the Presidential Fitness Award.
Yeah, and so that on top of the beef I had with Michelle Obama for taking away my Pizza Fridays in elementary school.
Holy smokes!
I think that's what started my political.
Michelle Obama lunches were worthy of like school riots.
Oh man, I think that's what radicalized me as a kid to be a conservative.
Don't take our square pizza.
Exactly. No. Yeah. Yes.
I mean, in fact, I wouldn't mind having a piece of square pizza like right now.
Oh, this is great.
Square pizza was good.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like I grew up strong and healthy. And I recognize that, that not everybody can say that who of my generation. I feel like I've been blessed. But I'll also say too that like school lunches, you'd go to school, you get a lunch that had a piece of square pizza, some tater tots.
Oh yeah. Yep.
And a pack of Jell-O that was filled with sugar.
Yep.
And some milk.
Yep.
Whole milk, by the way.
But
and we did fine.
Me and my friends would go from school after school. We go to practice. Like we weren't going home and sitting around. Like we were going home and practicing for several hours. So taking away the good food like that, and then shrinking the quantity as well. Yeah, I was not very happy as a kid.
That was so misguided.
Yeah,
I mean, you'd get an apple, 3 carrot sticks, and some tofu or something on your plate, and kids look at it and go, what's this?
Yeah.
And next thing you know, they're like going straight to the snack machine in the hallway.
And after the recess Super Bowl with me and my buddies, I go to lunch and be like, what is this? I need food. Yeah.
Scott from Decatur says the U.S. has given Mexico enough aid over the last 40 years to buy their country. It's time to foreclose. Wow. There you go. Dave from Capshaw says when libs can't win with ideas, they turn to rioting and destroying things and people. Yep. Seen it happen. The summer of law. Remember that? Kim from Danville, Alabama says Lucas Black. Oh, there's that one we had referenced a minute ago.
Well, we got 3 texts in a row on Lucas
do we
Black,
really?
So yeah.
Okay. Lucas Black, awesome Christian man from Alabama, former actor on NCIS. Okay. Now we got to find out about this.
Yeah. I looked him up.
Is he living in Alabama now? Or is he
I don't know.
From Alabama originally?
Well, he was born in Decatur.
Wow.
So don't know if he's currently living in Alabama still. But...
Let's track him down. Maybe we'll do a podcast with him. I like it. Allie from Athens says, Phil, I don't think I have ever, as a member of the Rightside family, texted you 3 times the same day. He said Lucas Black was the little boy in Sling Blade. Oh, was he really? Okay. Lucas Black played in NCIS New Orleans as Christopher, who went to Alabama and had been the elephant. He hails from Moulton, Alabama. I think you probably know who he is. You just don't know that you know who he is. Well, I do now.
Wait, so he was Big Al? Lucas Black? That's funny.
He went to Alabama.
And I think he was the elephant.
He was the elephant. So he's Big Al.
Yeah, that's funny.
We got to track the guy down.
Yeah.
All right. I'm in front of God and witnesses.
Mm-hmm.
I'm assigning you.
Okay.
See if you can track him down, figure out how to make contact, and we'll see if we can get him on a podcast. All right. Stephen from Athens. He was also on the show NCIS. Thank you, Stephen. We got that. And Sling Blade. Yep. And then Shane from Lacey Springs. Lucas went to Speak High School. Okay. All right. Listen, we're going to track down Lucas Black. I have just been made aware, and I am keenly aware of how deficient I was in my knowledge of this individual who needs to be known. All right, you guys, we're taking a break right now. We'll take this break. We'll come right back. First dipper on tap for the next session is Mexico a failed state? Why does that matter to you? Why do you care? I'll tell you exactly why you care when we get back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. You decided, heck, I've done everything else. Why don't I run for the U.S. Senate?
Lost my mind.
Dude, I ran for the state Senate, and I had a 4-county race. You're all over 67 counties, state of Alabama. First foray into politics is U.S. Senate.
Yeah.
And I mean, you didn't prevail, but you sure made a splash. So the first thing I'm going to ask you, before I even ask you any thoughts on it, is: would you do it again? Would you? I mean, would you? If somebody came to you and said, "Hey, Mike, we got this office we want you to run for," would you like draw down on them, or would you say, "I'll consider that"?
Well, I've answered this question many times, especially recently with obviously coach's decision.
Right.
I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's very, very unlikely that I would do anything, and it would take a special set of circumstances. I am by no means an expert, but I think I understand a little bit how it works now, and I understand when the mission is actually unachievable, which, as it turns out, for me it was, and I just didn't know it.
Huh. Any regrets on running?
So, no regrets, because one of the things I went into it with is I didn't want to be sitting on my couch 5 years later saying, "Man, I could have won that." What if? I didn't want to be that guy.
Yeah.
But if I knew what I know now, I wouldn't do it again. Does that make sense?
It does.
I don't regret doing it because I didn't know what I know now.
Hindsight's 20/20.
Yes.
Yeah.
But man, what an eye-opening experience. And unfortunately, I don't have a good taste in my mouth over how it all played out.
You told me that right after the race.
Yeah.
You and I were at a veterans event.
Yeah.
And I said, would you do it again? You said, wrong time to ask.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
Yeah.
Well, most folks do sit on their couch, though.
You don't end up with a business with 700 people in 12 years and make the Inc. 5,000 list 12 times by being an average. I mean, and we started in the worst possible year ever, which was 2008.
Oh,
Everybody
wow.
said, "Why are you doing this? This is
Yeah.
a terrible time." So point being, I didn't have a lot of political experience, but I can guarantee I could have figured it out. I mean, there are some very intelligent, capable, good people there, but there's also some that are the opposite end of the spectrum.
Yes, there are.
Yeah.
In fact, there are some who don't deserve the office, and some you look at them and go, how'd you even get the office? And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. Pulling pins on truth grenades. That's what we're doing. I'm in this next dipper I'm about to jump into. I'm calling it, basically, it's a question. Is Mexico a failed state? Why do we care? You may look at it and go, America first. What happens on our southern border, as long as it's not crossing the border, is not something that we care about. To some degree, I get that. I will also tell you that it does cross our border, and that's the problem. When you have a failed state on your border, there is no way it can't bleed over. This is not like a failed state on the Horn of Africa, Somalia. This is not like a failed state somewhere out in the Caribbean, Haiti. This is not like a failed state in Southwest Asia, Afghanistan. This is literally our southern border. Our southern border, second only to the border with Canada, is a long stretch of ground. On the other side of it is oftentimes anarchy. Now, I know there are still tourist destinations. I have a friend who was just down there, and listen, I get it. Me personally, you couldn't pay me to travel there right now. This is the way I feel. I mean, and part of that, I'll be honest with you. I'm just going to be very candid and say that I am less inclined to want to be in places where they don't speak my language since my tours in Iraq and Afghanistan. It's kind of a thing. We went as a family to the Dominican Republic, to a resort after my second deployment, and I just had the heebie-jeebies the entire time. Did not feel good. I wanted to stay inside the resort more often than not because it just felt like I was inside the fob and I was safer inside the wire. I mean, just say what it is. It's just the kind of the way I felt. Haven't traveled outside of the country much in the last decade. Most of my travels have been inside the country, and I'm good with that. A lot of things to see here in America. I also have a dream, though, of going to Europe. I want a bucket list. I want to take the lovely Charlene on a trip to Europe. I want to go back and see where I accepted Christ in England. I'd love to do one of those like Viking River cruises on the Rhine River. JP just got back from a trip that I'm still jealous over, going to the Vatican and everything else. That was cool.
You got to go to Normandy too.
Normandy. I would love to see Normandy, man. I would love to see Normandy. I have no desire to go to Mexico right now. And yes, I've been to Mexico several times. I've been there on mission trips and I've been there on vacation. But Mexico, some are saying, is almost to the point of being a failed state, at least in certain portions of it. What is a failed state? There's an actual definition. A failed state is a term that sort of originated back like in the 1990s. It was designed originally to describe Somalia. Think about Black Hawk Down. If you've ever seen the movie Black Hawk Down, you're watching anarchy. You're watching the strong man who has his influence in certain places and the government has no influence anywhere. In fact, you even wonder why there's a government. The country descends into disorder. There's a coup or whatever else that dismantles government's ability to do things like, standard issues of law enforcement, security, territorial control. Can you control the borders? Can you do tax collection to have the revenue to provide the essential services that are needed? And then if you can't do those things, you wind up with widespread corruption and criminality. And think about what happened in Afghanistan. The Taliban seized control in Afghanistan. Anarchy. It was every man for himself. There's no centralized government. They called it government, but it really wasn't. What you had was warlords, strongmen. You had thugs. You had the Taliban terrorizing people. The rule of law was out the door. And guess what happened? Al-Qaeda decided that was a great place to base themselves. So they did. Look at Somalia. The Black Hawk Down situation was a direct result of a failed state. We were there to provide aid. Next thing you know, it turned into mission creep. We're trying to stop warlords. And then next thing you know, our friend Mike Durant shot down in the Battle of Mogadishu. A failed state on your border is a really bad thing. If you go look at the island of Hispaniola, two countries on one island, Haiti on one side, Dominican Republic on the other. Now the Dom Rep, Dominican Republic, it has its own problems, but is generally speaking stable. The Dom Rep has a border on its island with Haiti, and they don't want Haitians coming over because Haiti is crazy right now. Haiti is the kind of place where you have I'm not kidding when I say this. You have thug gang leaders who drink the blood of their victims. I mean, Haiti is a place that is just like off limits for travel. I guarantee you, if you look, you'll find a State Department advisory saying don't go there. But when you have that on your border, it creates issues across the border. There's no way for it not to. When we saw the mass migration across our southern border over the last few years, what we saw was a country that A, had no controls, B, was not being stopped on our side, let's be honest, but C, was also probably incapable of doing the things it was doing. And a lot of the people who came across our border were coming here from Mexico because they saw a way to get out of the anarchy. One of the largest portions of the GDP of the entire country of Mexico is what's known as remittances. That's people who come to America to work and they wire money back home. If GDP for your country is based in part upon people going elsewhere to find work, you're verging on becoming an economic failed state at the very least. But now you've got things like what the cartels are doing. And the cartels, let me paint a picture for you. Think about Israel. Think about Lebanon on the northern side of Israel. And within Lebanon, you have a non-nation state entity called Hezbollah that controls huge swaths of territory, has its own armies, and literally runs the show, and the government of Lebanon could do nothing about it. That's the cartels on our southern border. Now, President Trump has most recently, for the first time ever, declared the drug cartels in Mexico to be terrorist entities. That gives him powers to do things that were never done before. I can't guarantee we won't see some form of military action. It's not going to surprise me if something blows up in the jungles and a drug lab goes away because, I don't know, maybe a JDAM just lands right smack in the middle of it. Or maybe a Tomahawk cruise missile comes flying in from an offshore a submarine. Who knows? All I'm saying is, by naming them as terrorist entities, he also has the right to freeze their assets in banks. He can sanction people for doing deals with them. But the cartels have become like non-nation state entities in Mexico. They control whole swaths of territory. There are places where the government can't even go. And even if it did, would it matter? Because it appears half the time the government is in cahoots with them. They're a $1 trillion industry, and they are creating a failed state where anything goes. I'll have more on this when we get back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back.
To trust them, you know, and I think, you know, being the oldest of six, I'm pretty bratty. It's kind of like bratty, and also kind of.
Were you headstrong?
Yeah. I mean, I can fight any boys in my neighborhood growing up. I mean, I would have like a spitting contest with the boys. And anyway, so I just felt like at that time, I felt like I'm trusting my parents. And even though now looking back, I can't even imagine them having to make this decision. No. Because, you know, honestly, they don't know if they will ever see me and my sister again. They don't know that, right? But they have to make this hard decision because they knew that at least two of their kids may have a better life elsewhere than Vietnam.
Well, I mean, that's huge. And I've raised kids, and I understand you've raised your kids. And I cannot imagine at 10 and 12 years old sending them away and knowing never see them again.
I remember saying,
what an amazing thing.
Saying goodbye to my little brother. He was 2 years old. And that night we slept in a mosquito enclosement. That's how we sleep in Vietnam.
Under
I remember a net. Mosquito net. I remember hugging my brother and one of my sister, two of the other sister. It was summer, so there was no school. So two of the sisters did visit some of our relatives elsewhere. I remember thinking, this is maybe the last time I get to see two of my siblings and my parents. And I just, that morning when when my dad took my sister and I to the coast to leave on this riverboat.
Yeah.
Looking back and see my mom there, not sure if I ever see her again. That was hard.
Oh, well, I can't even imagine. I also can't imagine not just your side, but I can't even imagine the parent side of it. But so you got on the boat though, and you're on there, and you do have some family ties on the boat with you. You have an aunt, uncle, and some cousins.
Yes.
How many total?
There was 2 sets of aunts and uncles and
Okay.
2 of their kids.
Okay. And then how many people total on the boat? I mean, is this a?
It's about 400.
Oh, this is not a small boat.
No, well, no, it's a small boat, but they fit as many people in there as they can, and there was not room. There was only room just to sit. There's not even room to lay down. And I remember one time my sister and I had our backs together just to sleep because there's no room to lay down.
All right, I heard you speak. This was not a smooth voyage. This boat, and you were actually at some point intercepted by pirates. Am I right?
Yes.
Okay, how'd that go?
Well, not very well. But, well, first of all, the South China Sea was full of pirates at that time. And because they knew that the Vietnamese refugees carried gold and jewelries with them to start their lives elsewhere, right?
Right.
So, piracy is, I think it was estimated that a quarter of the refugee boat people was robbed by pirates.
Wow.
And they're from Thailand and other, Malaysia, Indonesia, and all that. But yeah, we were, after several days at sea, we actually landed in Malaysia.
So you went ashore in Malaysia, or is this before the pirates or after?
This is okay. So this part may be a little bit sensitive,
Okay.
in a way, but this is the truth. We landed in Malaysia, and we thought we were going to be rescued. Well, the Malaysian Navy.
Hey, all you Rightside ruffians out there, you are listening to Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative and just plain right. Pulling pins on truth grenades. That's what we're doing. All right, so I got a piece here from the Federalist, and it came out in 2022, so it's a few years old. But it lays the foundation. Think about it. This is 3 years ago, and they're saying this. Starts off by pointing out that it says video footage recently surfaced. This is January of 22. On Twitter, showing C4 explosives being dropped by a drone in a small village in Mexico, reportedly by members of the Jalisco New Generation cartel, following hours of clashes between armed groups. We're seeing this on our southern border right now. Drones are a huge deal. They're flying drones across the border with drugs, and they're flying drones across the border with weapons, and they're flying drones across the border with hand grenades. I mean, we've seen reports multiple times that's happening on our southern border. But this article from the Federalist points out it's the kind of video clip that surfaces on social media now and then that offers a glimpse of the outlandish happenings in Mexico. And most Americans have no way of making sense of these videos. Think about this. We just had an awful shooting just this past weekend, I guess, in New York City.
Not even. It was Monday.
Was it Monday? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So we just had, just in the last few days, we just had an awful shooting in New York City. It's made national news. It's created a furor. It's become a campaign issue in the mayor's race for New York. And 5 people died. 5 people dying in Mexico is a daily event. No kidding. What would you think if you saw a report that a drone dropped C4 explosives on something going on in the United States? What would you think if you saw that not just questions about the 2020 election, but what would you think if you saw that cartel gunmen rounded up every campaign worker and volunteer working for the party they didn't like and held them hostage until after the campaign was over to make sure they couldn't work for the opposition? That happened in Mexico in 2019. What would you think? Get this. If, like in October of 2019, in what became known as the Battle of Culiacan, National Guard troops in Mexico, under orders from the government, by the way, National Guard there is more like National Army, almost like state police in some ways. National Guard troops there arrested Ovidio Guzman Lopez, who was the 29-year-old son of the Sinaloa cartel boss Joaquin El Chapo Guzman. So they arrested the son of the Sinaloa cartel boss. So what does Sinaloa cartel do? Do they go, oh, shoot, they got the man? Nope. They loaded up teams with armored vehicles, heavy weaponry. They besieged the city where the National Guard was holding El Chapo's son. They trapped the guardsmen. They got into a pitched battle. And the standoff finally ended when the president of Mexico had to call the troops and tell them to release the prisoner just to avoid more bloodshed. Did he go back and try to take care of it later? No. In fact, the president of Mexico then went to the Sinaloa region and got pictures made with El Chapo's mom as he shook her hand and hugged her neck to make sure the world saw that he was okay. Everything's all right. We've made peace. This is the way things work right now. You got the Sinaloa cartel. You got the New Jalisco cartel. You got other cartels of a smaller. And listen, they are running the show in Mexico. Now, there's places where the Mexican government is still, I mean, you got life. I mean, things go on. They've got infrastructure. It's not like the United States, but it's, they've got stuff. They've got electricity. They got industry. Certainly they do. But in so many places, it is not even safe to get off the beaten path. There's a piece here that I pulled from thehill.com. Came out 2 days ago. It says the new Cold War is now between countries and super cartels. It says Mexico's drug cartels are so tenacious, so powerful that under intense pressure, it's like they forge diamonds rather than crumble up. Said amid years of bloody turf wars, new tariffs aimed at hitting the global narcotics market, and thousands more combat troops at the border, cartels are feeling the pressure. But the result? Two of the most notorious cartels, the Sinaloa and the Jalisco New Generation, have begrudgingly decided to unite in order to conquer this unprecedented alliance. That's a little scary. So a seismic shift now in global organized crime demands the U.S. needs to urgently rethink its approach, because a super cartel like this won't just be a criminal syndicate trafficking migrants and drugs. It'll become more like a rogue state. Now we're talking something like Hezbollah. I mean, they've already got armored vehicles and heavy weapons. They recruit directly out of the National Guard. They recruit out of the police forces. They bring in they bring in all of their foot soldiers. A lot of them they're not just peasants working the fields. A lot of they have trained military. They also bring in foreign actors to train them. They do. It says U.S. policy too often treats cartels like street gangs. President Trump's recent move to designate them terrorist organizations did make headlines, as did his talk of military action, but threats won't solve the crisis. This is not just like Breaking Bad on TV. There's no neat ending to the story, he says. It's a great piece. It says the war on drugs was an abject failure. It triggered a 900% increase in cartel activity. Cartels, though, are Mexico's fifth largest employer. So now we're talking about a state within a state, these cartels. And we're talking about the fact that they are the fifth largest employer in the whole nation. And they're recruiting children, and they're recruiting teenagers. And some estimate that as many as 460,000 young Mexicans are involved in organized crime. That's not the Crips and the Bloods. That's not gangs on a street corner. That's like entire sections of the country are under the control of a non-nation state entity, and the government can do nothing about it. And guess what? Most of that controlled area is literally on our southern border. It's not down south somewhere where it's further away. You can't just cross over the border in most places without the cartel saying so. The article I'm reading right now points out this is a humanitarian, developmental, and moral emergency, and it mirrors the same dynamics that allow violent extremist groups to flourish. In the fight against ISIS, military forces did play a decisive role, but just as crucial were the grassroots actors who undermined the group's ideology from the ground up. In the U.S., community networks quietly blunted ISIS's influence, rejecting its doctrine from the pulpit, fostering interfaith solidarity, and helping law enforcement support the youth. What we're saying right now is it's going to take supporting the people of Mexico. Now, I'm not suggesting, hey, let's go down there and be a nation builder. That's not what I'm saying. In fact, I don't think we need to do that at all. That's not our role. But it's going to take continued toughness on the part of the U.S. administration, whether it be the Trump one or whoever follows. It's going to take an entire generation to begin weeding this crap out. Because what you're looking at right now, if the cartels, if that article is accurate, if the Sinaloa and the New Jalisco, which are huge, picture this, they have their own armies. If the Sinaloa and Jalisco cartels are on our southern border and they have taken over whole sections of northern Mexico, and they are violent anarchists intent upon trafficking people and drugs across our borders and doing damage where necessary to maintain their empires. They are willing to do mass murders. I've got stories here in my hand of like where the governor of one of the states opposed something that the cartels did, and suddenly a van load of dead bodies showed up on the front of the city hall. I've got another that says the mayor of one of the towns in northern New Mexico in the Sinaloa region, the mayor himself turned out to be a cartel boss. He was arrested by the DEA in Guadalupe, Guatemala. When they arrested him, they found out that he had just become part of a major trafficking operation, and the DEA did the biggest drug seizure ever in the history of the Miami-Dade region, which is a big deal because of what they found out from him. But when he was arrested, the Sinaloa cartel loaded up, went to the village, and they slaughtered people and beheaded them in the town square because they believed that somebody had given up the information. All that to say, this is on our southern border. This is right across the line. This is something that bleeds across the. When you see things coming across the border, it's not always because they just want a better life. Sometimes it's because they're escaping, sure. Other times it's because they're being trafficked, for sure. And other times it's because they're part of the bad actors. One of the things we have to watch also is there's been a strong belief that some of our adversaries on the world stage are partnering with the cartels in order to do damage to the United States. China being one.
I was about to say, China.
China. If I'm not mistaken, one of the biggest purchasers of oil from Mexico is China. And then there's black market oil that gets scarfed up and sold to China. And then there's things that come in. Oh, like, I don't know, fentanyl from China. I mean, where do you think the fentanyl crisis comes from? Think about this. The cartels in Mexico take Chinese fentanyl, which comes to them, shipped in industrial quantities, and they make it into drugs that then come across our border that have killed in the last 3 years well over 150,000 Americans. 9/11 only saw 3,000 plus or minus people die, which was awful. The fentanyl crisis being manufactured between China and the cartels has killed 150,000 plus Americans. And if that was an Al-Qaeda event, if that was a bombing, if that was something that happened from another nation dropping a nuke on us, we would be at war already. And I'm not advocating for it. I'm not saying let's go over there and fight them. What I am saying is we better maintain a tough stance and do not underestimate who these cartels are, especially if they're actually combining now and forming one super cartel. And then on top of that, let's don't ever discount the idea that just because it's across the border, it's not going to affect us. Failed states have a way of making regional instability. What you got, man?
Well, I was going to say, I mean, we're willing to go and bomb the Houthis in Yemen, and we're not able to. I mean, the argument of, we don't want to upset the Mexican government isn't good enough for me, really, because, I mean, I think it's a good comparison talking about Hezbollah, the Houthis, to these cartels because they're separate from the government. But I think the cartels, in my opinion, are worse because I think they're way more interlinked with the Mexican government. Like I feel like the Lebanese government at least tries to, this is whether they're successful or not. But I feel like a lot of the cartels and the Mexican government are one and the same in a lot of ways.
Oh, I agree.
So I mean, and this is one, like, if you imagine if the cartels was launching missiles across the border and killing 150,000 Americans, how much different our response would be. They're just doing it in a subtle way, So I feel like if we're willing to do what we did to the Houthis, but we're not able to do the same to the cartels, which is literally on our border and killing Americans, yearly. It's like, I don't know. We got to do something. And I feel like shutting down the border has helped a lot, but they're still, I mean, they're going to find a way. I mean, they're not going to give up. Just, the border's shut. We're done.
It's interesting. Before we go to the break, I got to say, we don't know what conversations happen in the background.
Yeah.
We do know that that Rubio and Hegseth have both been traveling south of the border. Hegseth went down to Panama. Rubio, I believe, was in Mexico. And then Trump, we know, has talked to the new president of Mexico, Sheinbaum. And I am not going to be a bit surprised to find out that at some point in the conversation, it was said, you either get control of it or something will blow up south of the border. I'm not going to be a bit surprised. It may not have happened yet, but I'm not going to be a bit surprised to find out that this administration wasn't afraid to say it in a sidebar comment during negotiations.
Well, it's, I don't know. I'm sure there's a lot of SEAL Team 6 guys that could do some work too. Not advocating for it necessarily, but I'm sure they could.
All right. Take me to a break, JP. We'll take the last break of the day on Thankful Thursday. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Lots of y'all texting in. I'll get a few of these when we get back. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Came out and they tied our boat to their boat and they pulled us out to the sea.
Oh, wow.
And we thought we were getting pulled to somewhere like a refugee camp or something. They pulled us out to sea where there's no people that can see them. They robbed us.
The Malaysian Navy.
Yes, because they were in uniform.
Wow. Did you have any personal items of your own stolen? Were there any people that were taken? I mean,
yeah.
I would imagine human trafficking is also an issue sometimes in this.
That would have happened, I believe, with all my heart. But if it wasn't for the grace of God, God intervened during this situation because a huge storm was brewing. So they started robbing people, and they found a bunch. They came over with metal detector.
Yeah.
And the captain of our boat has hidden some gold on the boat, and they found the gold, and it was a lot of gold. And so they were busy doing that. And then they make people strip off their jewelry. And I remember my mom had sent some jewelry with us, some gold bracelets and necklaces and stuff. And my sister and I actually strip them off of us, and we would stuff them in our mouths just to hide from the pirates. So that was saved. But they found a lot of gold from the captain that they didn't want to bother with the people too much. And even while they were robbing us, there was this huge storm brewing really fast, and they wanted to get out of there.
Sometimes God calms a storm, and sometimes He brings a storm.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so the storm was brewing really fast, and they were trying to rob us really fast, so they didn't search everybody.
So you got to keep your...
So my family got to keep ours.
Wow.
Jewelry. But that storm got them out of there. And their plan was they disabled our engine and threw some of our provision overboard. So they think that someone's going to capsize our little boat.
They disabled the engine, left the boat just adrift?
Yes.
Okay.
So they were hoping that storm would capsize our boat and kill all of us. So they don't have to do the killing themselves. We believe that is their plan. But that storm, if they didn't capsize our boat, that they were hoping we would be floating in the South China Sea, starved to death because they disabled our engine. We couldn't go anywhere.
How long did you stay adrift after that?
Several days.
Wow.
Several days adrift. And that storm actually carried us to Indonesia, closer to Indonesia.
Which is where you wound up
Yes.
in a refugee camp, am I
Yes. Yes. So the Indonesians saw a boat and they came out and they helped us.
right? That's an
and
amazing circumstance.
Yeah, exactly. God just intervened.
How about that?
I believe that with all my heart.
Well, I believe it with you. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative and just plain right. Man, bulletproof influence. That's where we are. Bulletproof influence. Some text messages, then I'll go to the phones. Lisa from Huntsville just checked in. Says, I completely agree. Something has to be done about the cartels. They are so interwoven with so many of the governments down in South America. It's mind-boggling. And in case either of you has seen it, the Netflix series Narcos has got to be one of my absolute favorite series. Based on the true story of the American agents that helped bring about the downfall of Pablo Escobar. I learned so much about the cartels through that show. Yeah, Lisa, and by the way, I got to tell you, we were just talking about him earlier. We had Lieutenant General Jerry Boykin on the show once. I need to get him back, who's one of the founding members of Delta Force. And he was one of the architects of the hunt for Pablo Escobar and had an amazing story. His book is called, what's his book called? Undaunted Courage, I think. But anyway, great story, and he's a great man. Thomas Mathis says the Mexican cartels are godless and evil. Yes, indeed, they are. Tom from Decatur says if Mexico is a failed state, it's because they used countries like Cuba to form themselves. Castro was nothing more than a lawless thug, head of the country's largest cartel. Without China, Russia, Cuba fails in a month. Well, point. David at Bucky's, Phil, there's nothing like the Rhine aflame cruise. He says you're on a one of 40 to 50 cruise ships on a flotilla down the Rhine. It's after sunset. You pass 30 or so castles along the way, and as you pass, each castle sets off a firework display. The cruise lasted about 4 hours. It'll be one of my many memories for my time in Germany. That's awesome. John from Lexington, South Carolina, reminds me of a story I need to check on. Vulcan Materials, an Alabama company, I'd forgotten this, had its Mexican port totally appropriated by the president of Mexico. No rule of law. Just unbelievable. I need to check. Thank you for reminding me of that, John. I appreciate it very much. The grades are in. John from Huntsville says Butters and Lee both get a solid A for their equally amazing performances. Jay Peak is an A+ for his fantastic performance. Means today's co-winners with an A++ are the magnificent Phil Williams and the brilliant Stan McDonald. Congratulations, John from Huntsville. John, that's awesome. I will tell Stan McDonald. Thank you very much. Appreciate you, man. Let me go to the phones because he's on. Jeff Rowe from Indiana. What you doing, buddy? Did we lose him
I
again?
think Jeff's having audio issues.
Is Jeff having what?
I think Jeff's having audio issues.
I thought you said he's having naughty issues.
No. Audio issues.
Audio issues. Well, Jeffro, if you can get back on the line, man. I want to hear from you. I think we missed you yesterday. Danny from Decatur says, my daughter-in-law told us she went to Decatur High School with Lucas Black, was a classmate. Said, I've heard he's living in the area. You wouldn't know he's there. He tries to blend in. Well, you know what? We're going to see if we can get him to not blend in and join us. Joe from Tennessee, Lucas Black again. We got all kinds of texts about Lucas Black. Everybody knew about Lucas Black. Why didn't I know about him? Mike from Florence, Lucas Black. Richard from Madison, Lucas Black. So yeah, all good. All right, listen, plenty of things to think about on today's show. Did we get him back?
All right, he's back on, but it may or may not work, so we'll give it a try.
Jeffro, you there? It's not working.
Jeff's having issues today.
Jeff,
unfortunate.
Jeff, just so you know, we love you and we want you back on. So let's fix this audio, man. I think our phone's working because Lee used it earlier.
Oh,
so.
yeah, it is. Yeah. I got to ask you, though, Phil. Yeah, are you setting your DVR tonight? Did you see that Kamala Harris is going on Stephen Colbert tonight?
Like two failures talking to each other? Is that what we're talking about?
It's
both were canceled by their own peers.
I was just wondering if you were wanting to rush to get home so you can check out,
Hang on.
watching that.
Let me pray about it. No.
I wonder if our listeners are going home and watching this tonight.
Did anybody even know that was going to happen besides you? I'm not sure where you picked that. What random liberal website have you been on to find that information?
I was just on X. People are making fun of it, so we are,
and rightfully so. I mean, you got the guy that was canceled by his own company, and the woman who was canceled by her own voters. So I'm saying ain't going to happen.
Yeah.
No. All right. Did we get him back? Is he not?
No,
okay. All right. Jeff from Indiana won't make it on today. We'll get him on tomorrow. Tomorrow is Friday, by the way. And tomorrow, by the way, we're going to have somebody on. I'll be honest with you. I don't know enough about this to even do a dipper and feel confident about it. But cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, Doge, all that. What is that? How does that work? Well, we got a guy coming on tomorrow. Paul Breyer from Inspire Advisor is going to call and give us like a cryptocurrency 101 session. I'm looking forward to it. I told JP the other day, we need to find somebody. We both went, how about Paul? And yes, indeed, he's going to be on. So check in for that one tomorrow. In the meantime, do not forget, I say it all the time. I mean it every time. There are way more of us than there are of them. God is still very much on his throne. Y'all stay in the fight. We'll see you tomorrow.